Ready? Okay, I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for January 11 to order at 8:32 a.m. We have all members present except for Terry Reno. We have minutes for approval. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Larry?
I'll second.
Kelly seconds. Any questions or concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comments? Is there any? It's okay.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Joe Terrio, County Clerk.
Loan.
How'd you know you were the first one?
Also the last one.
Oh. Yes, sir.
So, you have in front of you, unfortunately not in the condition that you can vote on it, but I just wanted to come here so we could talk about it at the very least.
I'm going to do that at new business.
Oh, are you?
Yes, because there's two resolutions.
Then I'll go sit down.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, you're welcome to.
I have nothing else to comment.
Okay.
Nice haircut.
Thank you. All right, is there any other public comments? Yes? You have one too.
I do.
You want to, we're doing our new business.
Oh, you're doing it under new business?
Yeah. Did you just not hear what we just talked about up here? All right, anyone else?
I heard you singled him out.
Oh. There's two of them, yours and his.
All right.
Anything else? All right, beautiful. Member comments. Any members have comments?
I just want to say thank you for all the additional documentation that was into this agenda. I really appreciate seeing all the background information, not only for myself, but also for anybody new too.
Anyone else? No? I just have one quick thing. Because we have 4 new members on this committee, I just wanted to talk real quick about how I do things, which I'm sure is probably different than every other chairman does things. So I just wanted to real quick, you know, I admit I have a passion for finance, I have a passion for numbers, I have a passion for data and stuff, and so I get a little wrapped up in that, so sometimes you can slap me and just say, hey, dummy, we don't care, and I'm okay with that. I do expect a lot out of the committee members, though. I really get annoyed, and I'm telling you this up front, so I really get annoyed when I feel that members ask questions that could have been answered prior to meetings. We're all adults, we don't need to waste each other's time. And you know, there's a difference between asking a question that could have been answered, and then on the flip side, saying, hey, I'm going to pick on Joe Terrio. I spoke with Joe Terrio about his resolution, and I have some concerns. He answered all my questions, but here's the problems that I have with it. To me, that's a much more worthwhile discussion to have, because then you're sharing what your concerns are versus, I think I may have concerns, oh, maybe I don't. And so at last go around, we had some members that were pulling stuff that could have easily been answered prior to the meeting, and so because I do a consent agenda, because our resolutions, we always have tons of resolutions, you know, it's a lot easier, and so we spend a lot of extra time. Kathy has to spend extra time taking minutes. So it's just respectful to everybody. If you ever have anything you want on the agenda, just give me a call. I'm always accommodating to put stuff on. Never have a problem with it. And if there's things that I can do to improve our meetings, feel free to please call me, talk to me, whatever. I want to make this about the 7 of us, not about me. And so if there's anything I can do to make this better, more tolerable, I'm happy to do it. As you probably already know, our meetings are, on average, probably the longest out of all the committees. And I don't do that because I have a passion. It just is because we always have a lot of stuff to work on. So the faster we can get through things efficiently, the better off I think we all will be. So with that being said, any other member comments?
That took a lot of time.
That took a lot of time? Thanks, Larry. I'll keep it shorter next time. All right, with that, we are going to go to administrative hearing. which is number 5 on the agenda. So, members, the reason why you have an administrative hearing today is because in our process, when a bidder bids on goods or services for the county and they feel that the award of the bid was not done properly or to their satisfaction, there's a process by which they go through in order to appeal or have an issue with that decision. One of the outcomes of that is that it comes before Finance Committee. I've been here 10 years, never had one before, so this is the first time, you know, I've experienced it, so we're gonna, I'm kind of, there isn't a playbook that I can kind of pull out and say, hey, this is what I do in an administrative hearing. So we're gonna kind of go through it. I purposely asked for staff to not put anything in your board packet for you to read prior to. My thought process on that was that, to me, we're kind of a jury. We're supposed to be hearing both sides of this. I don't want any of you to be biased about information provided beforehand, and so therefore that's why I didn't ask for anything to be put in here. So to me, both sides, the person who's protesting and the county need to present their information, and we can ask questions. This isn't a court of law, I'm not a judge, and this isn't as formal, but you know, I want to make sure that we're doing this properly and that the complainant gets their time to talk and the county can defend their position. Does anyone have any questions? If not,
I do.
Oh, you do, go ahead.
Will we be coming to some conclusion, some vote on this, or?
Yes,
What is the conclusion part?
So the conclusion part is, so you can see on your agenda, you have a 5.1A and 5.1B. So basically, in 5.1A, we are determining whether we should uphold the administration's decision, which was to deny the request. And so we can either uphold that, meaning to agree with staff, or we can say, no, we agree with the complainant and overturn that. And then the second part of that is whether this bid package should be sent back out for bid again. Meaning, we've already awarded it, but we can rescind that because we feel that there were fatal flaws in the process, and then it would go back out for bid again. And then the subsequent 5.2 is a discussion with Frederick Quinn, who was the corporation who actually was, that we had hired to be responsible for the bid letting of not only this, but all of them. Sandy, there was what, 22?
Altogether?
Yeah, 40 something? I don't know.
Well, yeah. I have to report it out. Yeah.
A whole bunch, how about that?
A lot.
So they were we had hired them to be responsible for that whole process.
And they're here?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, are they here?
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else? No? All right, then I would ask the county and the complainant to come forward. We have seats along the table here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you've asked the county and the complainant to come forward. We represent the winning bidder,
Okay.
and we want to make a statement as well, so.
Okay, why don't can we allow them to present their stuff first?
Absolutely, I just
Okay.
wanted you to
Yep.
be aware of the
Had
fact that
no
we-
problem with that. We did, by the way, just so the committee, I forgot to mention that, we did invite all of the bidders that submitted bids for this to come here today, so they could be a part of the process if they so choose. They didn't have to, but we wanted to give them that opportunity.
Do you want me to pass this out now, or do you want me to wait to make a statement and then pass it out, Mike?
Well, why don't you can take a seat, you don't need to stand. Why don't you so I'm gonna let them present their side first, and then I'll let you present your side, if that's okay.
That's
I mean,
fine.
they're the ones that have requested this.
That's fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you need to introduce yourself,
Yep.
because this is all audio and video recorded, so you can introduce yourself.
All right, thank you. First and foremost, thanks for the time and the setting that you're being, allowing me to be here. My name is Wyatt Davis. I'm the Territory Sales Manager over the Midwest for Action Target. So the letter that you have in front of you that is discussing this issue and this process.
We don't have a letter in front of us,
Okay, great. I've got a few copies of that.
okay? I mean, I know what letter you're talking about, but the committee members do not, so.
Oh, great. I made 5 copies. I apologize. I didn't realize.
Thank you, sorry.
I don't need one, so go ahead.
Oh, that'll work then. Do I have a time cap here? Is there?
No.
So if it's all right, I
Just
would.
remember, I said I try and keep my meetings short, but other than that, no, you don't have a time cap.
Well, the best thing I can do is honestly probably read this letter. This is our case, and if there's any questions after that, I'm happy to answer.
I'm agreeable to that, like, I would like to read this.
Yes, no, go for it.
Great. McHenry County representatives, Action Target respectfully submits the bid protest challenging McHenry County's non-award of a contract to Action Target in response to Action Target's proposal to the RFP for the McHenry Joint Firing Range. According to McHenry County, the project was awarded to Inveris Training Systems on or about December 9th, 2022. Action Target respectfully requests that McHenry either 1, award the project to Action Target, or 2, reject all bids and resolicit bids for the project for the reasons identified below. Go on to this. Action Target submitted a bid in relation to the RFP for the project. The sealed bid package that was sent via mail to McHenry County included a bid total price of $1,067,995. While the sealed bid package was en route to McHenry, but prior to November 3rd, 2022 bid deadline, Action Target received clarifying information from FQC, the project construction manager, appointed by the county, who is in charge to supervise and coordinate the project, regarding the scope upon which Action Target was providing its bid. Due to the clarifications of release addendums provided by FQC, Action Target reduced its bid by $100,000. In a phone conversation between Action Target and FQC, FQC instructed Action Target to submit a positive or negative dollar adjustment to FQC via email to alter the sealed bid. Action Target submitted the negative dollar amount adjustment to FQC via email as instructed by FQC on November 1st, 2 days prior to the bid deadline. On November 3rd, 2022, McHenry County read aloud Action Target's bid of $1,067,995 and the negative dollar adjustment of $100,000, adjusting Action Target's official bid of $967,995 at the project bid opening meeting. On November 4th, 2022, documentation produced by FQC, I've got a copy of that, if anybody wants to see that. I don't know if this wants to be passed around or, let's see what it is. On November 4th, 2022, documentation produced by FQC and uploaded to the Building Connected site noted Action Target's bid of $967,995, which was the low bid compared to all competitors. On November 7th, 2022, FQC contacted Action Target and scheduled a scope review prior to making that final award. November 21st, Action Target was notified by FQC that Action Target's bid modification sent via email on November 1st, 2022 was no longer deemed valid by McHenry County. At this time, it was also determined that Action Target's original bid amount of the $1,067,095 as sent in the mail, sealed bid package previously, would be utilized by McHenry as the final Action Target bid amount for the project. Action Target notified McHenry County of its intent to protest the project award to another bidder on November 22nd, but that protest was denied by McHenry County's purchasing department. In In accordance with the McHenry County Purchasing Code, S12-101, Action Target respectfully submits this bid protest challenging McHenry's non-award of contract to Action Target in response to Action Target's proposal through the RFP for the McHenry County Joint Firing Range. Section S3-102 of the code says that modifications to bids may be permitted where appropriate, and that the modification should occur by written or electronically transmitted notice received in the office designated in the invitation for bids prior to the time set for bid opening. It also says the confirmation of the bid may be delivered the same day. This is in line with Section 310 of the instruction to bidders, which says that the bidder may modify its bid by written notice to the county or construction manager before the latest time specified for submitting bids. Section 310 also requires changes to bids be made only by substitution of another bid. Absent from Section 310 and the rest of the instructions to bidders is any express process for the substitution of another bid. In other words, because the process was not or is not defined, bidders must rely on the instructions from FQC, the construction manager, to modify the bid. I will say for FQC, when I called them, they were very professional about it. They did not want to know a new number or anything. They did not want to know what my bid was going to be. They instructed me to email them with a positive or negative change to my amount, and they would read that with my bid as they did at the opening. So no form was I under the impression that I was going to be led to doing something that wouldn't be accepted by the county. I mean, this group was hired by the county to run this, and they were the ones that instructed me to amend it through an email. So Action Target followed FQC's express instructions to modify its bid by submitting an updated bid via email, as previously noted on November 1st. Such a submission by Action Target of a modification to its bid was done in accordance with the county's code and instruction to bidders, and thus updated bid of $967,995 should be accepted as Action Target's final bid amount for the project, as it was recorded for probably a week and a half before it was adjusted. Because Action Target adhered to the instruction to bidders in the McHenry County Purchasing Ordinance, Action Target's modified bid compiled with all the bidding requirements, and Action Target should have been awarded the McHenry County Joint Firing Range project. Accordingly, as stated previously, Action Target requests either the award of the project and contract to Action Target, or 2, reject all bids and resolicit them for the project as identified here.
Okay.
That's my statement. I don't know if there's any questions for clarifying that you guys would like to know.
Well, let me have the county present their side first, and then committee members can ask questions of both sides, just so that we keep
Fantastic. Thank you.
Keep it clear. One of the, before we leave today, one of the committee members, if we can borrow a copy of that letter so that we can give a copy to Kathy for the official record.
I'm happy to give mine if you need it.
Huh?
I'm happy to give mine if you need it.
Yeah, Pete can make a copy of it real quick.
You've got one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, good morning, committee. I apologize, but
You gotta introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Adam Latom, Purchasing Director for the County of McHenry, Illinois. I apologize for the level of detail, but I believe here that the details are what are important, so we're going to go through it. The information included in this packet is about the bid posting information, the instructions to bidders, Action Target's knowledge of bid requirements for this project, Action Target's failure to follow clear and express instructions for this bid, and the basis of my denial for their protest. So we can get into the packet. Starting on page 1A, you'll see a copy of the initial bid notice filed in the Daily Herald October 4th, 2022. This notice included language which I highlighted below that says McHenry County is not accepting emailed electronic submissions for this bid. And that is confirmation from the Daily Herald that this was published as required by law and posted. Part B, the review of instructions to bidders for this project. Excuse me. Bid documents were posted on October 6th, 2022 on the county's bid pages. This included instructions to bidders, section 310, change or withdraw of bids. A bidder may withdraw or change a bid if written notice of the withdrawal or change is received by the county or construction manager before the latest time specified for bids. Any change may be only by substitution of another bid. On October 18th, that emphasis was added by me, I apologize. On October 18th, 2022, Frederick Quinn Corporation, the Sheriff's Office, and the Purchasing Department hosted a pre-bid meeting at the Cary Public Works, the site of the joint training facility. At this meeting, Purchasing clarified several times that all questions must come to Purchasing at McHenryCountyIL.gov, and we would disseminate them for addendum or inclusion. Mr. Davis was in attendance at this meeting, as you can see from the attached pre-bid sign-in sheet, which is attachment number 1. Highlighted is his name, showing he was at that pre-bid and was given that information. Instructions to bidders also included language regarding any questions. Section 3.5 includes a schedule of events which states, October 20th, 2022, vendor request for information and questions submitted no later than 4 p.m., submitted by email to purchasing@McHenryCountyIL.gov, and CC'd to my buyer who was in charge of this project. On October 19th, one day after the pre-bid, Action Target began emailing questions to FQC, not the county. The county did receive 5 questions from Action Target after Frederick Quinn forwarded them to the county on October 19th. 4 of the 5 questions were answered in addendum number 2, questions 11 through 15, which Action Target acknowledges receiving on October 24th, 2022, and reviewing in their submitted bid dated November 3rd, 2022. The county received no request from Action Target requesting a reschedule or other relief to accommodate resubmission of bid due to addendum clarification. The county has stood on the interpretation that email is not substitution of another bid. Instructions to bidders 311, errors and omissions reads, all bid proposals shall be submitted with each space properly completed. The special attention of bidders is directed to the policy that no claim for relief because of errors or omissions in the bidding will be considered, and bidders will be held strictly to the bid proposals as submitted. The county received no request from Action Target asking for any relief under section 311, and has stood by bidders will be held strictly to the bid proposals as submitted. Action Target claims no express language for substitution of another bid exists. The county believes 311 states what is expected clearly to the bidders. Continuing in the instructions to bidders 4.3, proposal bid instructions, subsection B reads, in part, interpretation of contract documents preliminary to the submission of bids. If any person contemplating submitting a bid for the proposed contract is in doubt as to the true meaning of any of the parts, plans, specifications, other bidding documents, he may submit an RFI to the county, again to the purchasing@McHenryCountyIL.gov, copied to the buyer. The important part here is the person submitting the request will be responsible for its prompt delivery, and final RFIs would be submitted no later than Thursday, October 20th, 2022 at noon. The emphasis added again here is any interpretation of the proposed documents will be made by an addendum duly issued, and a copy of such addendum will be posted on the county's official bid page. Again, the county received no request from Action Target asking for any relief under section 4.3. All bidders for bid package 111, which is this bid package we're talking about today, including Action Target, acknowledged receipt of all 4 addendums, and no issues or questions were brought up with the county for clarification. So then comes to the bid. Bids were due November 3rd, 2022. Bids were opened and read starting at 2 p.m. During the bid opening of bid package 111, an email deduction was read aloud by FQC. The county purchasing director, that's me, has denied the acceptance of the email deduction due to instructions to bidders sections 310, 311, and 4.3 as discussed above. What you see in section 3 is the bid summary that I instructed Frederick Quinn to produce on November 15th, which was the final bid presentation that was posted, in identifying, Veris Training Solutions as the low bidder. A preliminary bid summary, which was just handed out to you recently, was produced by FQC showing Action Target as the low bidder by inclusion of the email-based deduction. So that brings us to a summary of the bid protests. Veris filed a formal bid protest November 7th, citing instructions to bidders 3.10 and several other sections. That's in your packet, attachment 2. The purchasing director was not provided a copy of the email in question until November 14th, 2022 by FQC. That is your attachment 3. You'll see it's an email to me and the buyer on this project indicating that the proposal from Action Target as well as the email received November 1st reducing their proposal. It is the third page of attachment 3 that shows that no one from the county was contacted, and it includes language as per our conversation and addendums. When I saw this for the first time, I immediately recognized this as a conversation happening between the bidder, a potential bidder, and the construction manager outside of the bid process, with no request to the county and no opportunity for fair and equitable treatment for an addendum to be issued clarifying any points that were discussed in that conversation. So the county sustained in Veris's protest November 15th, 2022, that's your attachment 4, my letter to them, and ordered, FQC to update the bid summary to reflect bid proposals as submitted. That was what was included in your attachment C. That's what was posted on November 15th, per my instruction. At that point, Action Target formally protested the county's decision November 21st via email. That is attachment number 5. And you'll see the next page 2 of that attachment 5 is my denial of their protest based on these decisions. And finally included in your packet is attachment 6, Action Target's formally appealing my decision today as of December 23rd, 2022. So in summary, the initial notice to bidders included language that no email or electronic submissions would be accepted. Action Target was present at the pre-bid and is expected to follow the clear direction that all questions come to McHenry County Purchasing. The day after the pre-bid, Action Target failed to provide questions to purchasing at McHenryCountyIL.gov. Save for their bid requests, at no point did Action Target ask for relief from instructions to bidders 310, 311, or 43. Further, Action Target acknowledged all addendums in their bid submission and did not ask for any relief due to clarifications from any addendum. So at this point, it is County Purchasing's request of the committee that is to deny both of Action Target's requests in their appeal.
Okay. Members?
I need a moment to read what in Veris was challenging.
That's fine.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Take as much time as you need.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what might we hear from the gentleman from FQC?
Well, we can, if we would like them to be a part of this conversation in addition to the second part of the conversation, I'm fine with that. If you have questions pertaining to them and their actions in this whole process, and that will help you clarify your thought process, I'm happy to have them come up here also. Is that what you're requesting?
Well, it was stated that Action Target had direction from them to send the bid submittal change
Yep.
via email.
Yep.
And so I guess I'd like to confirm that with them, if that
Sure.
was the case.
Whoever, come on up.
Hi, I'm Jack Hayes.
Jack, why
President-
don't you take a seat right here in the middle, please?
Sure. Jack Hayes, President of Frederick Quinn Corporation.
Okay. If I'm on,
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Action Target stated they were given a direction by you that they could submit the change in the bid by email?
My understanding is one of our employees did accept a phone call from Action Target with that request and indicated if you were going to make a modification that they could send an email. That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Pardon?
I
Go
follow.
ahead, Brian, yeah.
Follow-up is, in that particular instance, was there a specification that you had to include the entire proposal again, rewritten? Or did it just say an email relative to a change of proposal?
I don't think it was specific on that. It would probably have been implied that it would have been just the change.
The change of price.
Yes.
Okay. Teresa?
Is it unusual for your other clients to say that you cannot accept email transmission? So I'm gathering that one of your employees made a mistake by saying that an email could occur. Is that unusual for an entity like us to say you cannot use email as a form of submission?
It's not unusual to use email, but in terms of the public bid opening process, it's standard that it is to be part of the sealed bid process. That's where the mistake was made. It should have been part of the sealed bid process. So some clients do accept electronic submission of things, but it has to be part of the whole package.
And we do accept email submissions, but not in this bid package or this instance. That was expressly excluded from this bid package.
Go ahead.
I guess I do have a question, because normally they are sealed, right? So I guess what I'm wondering is, how is it that it was a plus or minus the amount, changing the amount of the bid? That seems a very unusual way to change the amount to me. I mean, because it's...
It is, again,
I guess I'm
a
just wondering
mistake-
how that came up, that you specifically do the plus or minus.
it was one of those heat of the moment things. There was approximately 40 different trade contracts that were being bid simultaneously across the two projects. We were dealing with probably about 150 different bids that were coming in, and all the addendums had been issued. So everybody had all the same information. Unfortunately, from a practical standpoint, what ends up happening is those last couple of days before bids or submission, everybody's checking everything again and dotting their I's and crossing their T's, and they're like, Fred, what about this? Fred, what about this? And in the heat of the moment, he was under the impression that, I believe he was under the impression that by saying, send us some information, then we would then allow the county to make a determination whether this was a change that would be accepted or evaluated in your best interests. It was done with the intent that it's not submitted with the bid, but if the county wanted to take it under consideration, they could. If they didn't, they could throw it out.
Just so that I'm clear, you're saying Fred. Who is Fred?
Fred is the employee in my company that
Okay.
accepted that said, go ahead and send an email.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Kelly?
So in your letter,
Mhm.
you stated that you received clarifying information about the project after you had sent the sealed bid, is that correct?
Yes. It was just a conversation. Like FQC stated, I was crossing my T's, dotting my I's, rereading through addendums, called FQC and said, hey, I need to amend my bid. I've got extra material that's not needed for this project. That's when I was told that do not send, we were talking about the full number. They did not want to know my bid amount just for any reason that it could be leaked, anything like that. They were specific on give me a add or deduct. They didn't care what it was, whether I needed to increase my price or decrease my price. That's why it was a negative deduct of $100,000. So when they opened my sealed bid, they were going to deduct from there. They had no idea what my overall price was, to clarify that. So,
Okay, so then going to you with that, is that standard procedure? They just want to know plus or minus, or is that just the
This is
the
not,
phone call?
this is not standard procedure. The standard procedure is to open bids with a full and complete bid. It's one of those situations that came up that just was an anomaly.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sure. Would you have been able to get your bid to us in time?
yes, ma'am. 2 days prior, I could have overnighted it.
You could.
Brian?
On behalf of FQC, then, do you stipulate to the fact that there was a mistake in interpretation that was directly related then to the petition? Do you stipulate to that fact that there was a mistake in terms of the advice given?
I would say yes. Fred should have provided the information to contact, to communicate directly with the county with regard to the questions as indicated in the instructions.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the county, then, do you stipulate to the fact that FQC was the hired contractor on behalf of the county and therefore represented the county in terms of this bid process?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you stipulate to the fact then that you also were in receipt of all of the bid requirements?
Yes, sir.
And do you stipulate to the fact that all of those were orally discussed in the bidders' meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Larry, do you have any questions?
Nothing further.
Any other committee members have any other? Yep, go ahead.
Just one quick, so I'm, the challenge by Embarrass, as I would say it, just wondering how that came about. Was that,
That was
did they know
prompt-
that there was a challenge to the whole process?
That was prompted by the initial publication of the unofficial bid results that showed them as being, above the unofficial low bidder, which at the time was Action Target. That's what prompted the review of that list and at that point is when we discovered the email, and that's what prompted my decision to deny the email. And then republish on November 15th all the prices in the bids as submitted, as open to the bid on their own.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, so I do have a question. So, to Member Sager's point, you represented, you were responsible for reviewing all of the bid proposals. That was what you were hired to do, correct?
To help facilitate the bidding process, and then after the bids are received, to review them for completeness and accuracy.
Okay, and largely because that's a huge job. We just don't have the staff, so we contract out for that, correct? So, but who remained the point of contact for questions?
Purchasing from, initially clarified at the pre-bid meeting, purchasing was supposed to be the disseminator of all questions and all information as necessary.
All right, so FQR was simply to help with the process. That was not the point person or the point organization for.
They represented us as general contractor, but yes, the county holds that contract with FQC.
Any other questions by committee members? Oh, go ahead, Brian.
So you indicated that you have received, in fact, communication that, I want to clarify this, that you had received clarification that the bid requirements or the project needs, I guess, had been changed? Or was this a discovery that you made later that you didn't need to include these materials? Please clarify that for me.
Yeah, so after going through the addendums, after I had mailed, as it states in my document there, I was rereading, verifying everything that I had done, and found that I had included material that was not required in my bid scope.
All right, so you are stating then that you had received a full bid packet and that you had seen that addendum prior to received it. Perhaps you didn't totally digest it, but you had
Yes,
received that.
that is accurate.
addendum in there, correct?
Yeah.
So you stipulate the fact that initially your bid was in error. Is that correct?
Yeah, I needed to amend it. That's what this
Thank you
was.
very much.
Go ahead, Larry.
So if FQC is the one evaluating these bids, they're all equal other than price? I mean, they all fulfill the requirements that we're looking at here, these four at least?
Well, we typically just meet with the low bidder or two to do a scope review, and based on those meetings, then we make a recommendation to the county. Based on those meetings with the low, in this case, both Action and Embarrass, we found their final bid, their bid to be complete, subject to the clarification provided after the bid was submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else by committee members? Okay, then I would like to allow the other bidders that did bid on the project a time to talk, if that's okay with the committee? Okay, so you asked first, so I'll let you go first.
Thank you.
Would you like us to?
No, you can stay there, that's fine, it's okay.
slide down
See
here.
where we'd like to move.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't have, you can stand if you want, it doesn't really, whatever you want to do.
I can do either.
Yes,
I just need you to introduce yourselves.
okay. Good morning, Finance and Audit Committee. My name is Rhonda Butler. I'm here supporting the interests of Enverus Training Solutions. I am the Director of Contracts at Enverus. We appreciate this opportunity. I'm here with our sales manager who can introduce himself.
Good morning. My name is Keith Rhodes. I'm Midwest Sales for Enverus Training Solutions.
And we are also here supported by counsel.
Good morning, committee. My name is John Skolnick. I'm a partner of the law firm of Ellis, George, and Cipollone. I'll give
Okay,
you
so now
a...
you can say you're attorney. I couldn't say that. You can.
I can. I'm going to hand out a letter that we've sent to Mr. Latendre in response to the letter that you've seen now from Action Target. I'll hand it out. You'll see that my letterhead says my address is in Los Angeles.
And you came to Chicago?
Which is true, but I live in Chicago. I'm a lawyer in Chicago. My local address is there, but my principal office, where I actually have a desk and a chair and some files, is in Los Angeles. I'm licensed to practice in both states. Let me hand this out because I think this is important. The letter that I prepared, and with the help of the folks from Enverus, describes not only the circumstances but also the law that's applicable here, which I think is important. I've got plenty of copies for everybody. I think I have one from Commissioner Greeno too. And the law is important because the law in Illinois is pretty clear. Bids have to follow the instructions that are set out and advertised by the county purchasing agent. The reason for that is pretty simple. It's supposed to be an open process, it's supposed to be a fair process, and it's important for the integrity of the process to make sure that it's followed to a T. There's no exception. To the extent that there's any exception, that would undermine the integrity of the process. So with that in mind, let me talk about a couple of things here. You'll see in the letter that I just have handed out that there are really two reasons that we think the appeal should be denied. One is a procedural reason, and one is a substantive reason. And the substantive reason addresses the statements that Mr. Davis has made on behalf of Action Target, and has also addresses some of the questions that the commissioners have had. But let me talk about the procedural reason first. The procedural reason is that the appeal should be denied because it's untimely. Under your own ordinance, the appeal is too late. So let me give you a timeline. And again, this isn't, when you have time to look at the letter, if there's time to review it, it's on the letter. But the timeline is pretty simple. Bids were due, sealed bids were due by November 3rd, 2022 at 2 o'clock. Action Target's bid was apparently mailed in on October 29, 2022, and that's their sealed bid, not the email. And again, I'm going to give you some of the timeline. When the bids were opened on the 3rd, as you've heard, Frederick Quinn's representative read the email that's a reduction, that purports to be a reduction in the bid price. I've never seen it. There's no reason for me to have seen it, but we knew nothing about it until the bids were opened and read. On November 2, on November 12, Enverus wrote to the county purchasing director, Mr. Latendre, saying, we object to the reading of this email reduction because it wasn't part of the bid package. And I'll talk again about the substance later, about why it's important and what the requirements were that the county set out about what had to be in the bid package and what you could do if you wanted to change the bid package. But in the meantime, we wrote and said, we don't think it's appropriate for you to consider any additional letter. And on November 15, Mr. Latondra wrote to Inveris, and he said, I agree with you, the email is not compliant with either the purchasing ordinance or the instructions for bidders and wouldn't be considered as part of Action Target's bid. Action Target's bid at the time was $1,067,995. Our bid was $975,000. So we became the low bidder as a result of the determination by purchasing that email reduction should not be considered. Okay. On November 21, and now this is 6 days after Mr. Latondra made his determination that this email reduction shouldn't be considered, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Tomaszewski of Action Target sent an email to the purchasing department saying it was protesting that decision, namely that the email should not be considered. And that follows an appropriate time frame set forth by the county ordinance about when you can make a protest from the decision of the Department of Purchasing. Chairman Scala, you said earlier there's a process that you have to follow. It's set forth pretty clearly in the county ordinance. That was consistent with the process. Action Target did it right there. They sent their protest in within 10 days of the decision that the email wouldn't be considered. And that was consistent with the ordinance that says any protest of the decision of the Department of Purchasing has to be made within 10 days. And I think that may be in your package, I'm not sure. On November 22, Mr. Latondra wrote back and said, your bid wasn't consistent with and compliant with the instructions for bid. And again, I'll talk about why it's not compliant, but wrote back and said, it's not compliant, therefore your protest is denied. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and here's where the time frame really kind of falls apart. Section 12-1033 of the county's purchasing ordinance says that when the director of purchasing makes the decision with respect to a contractor's protest, that decision is final and conclusive unless within 10 calendar days from the date of receipt of the decision, the chairman of the Finance and Audit Committee receives a written appeal from the contractor. That's a quote from the purchasing ordinance. So that protest or that appeal from the denial of the protest should have been registered with the Finance Committee by December 2. That wasn't done. Action Target did not submit an appeal at that point in time. Don't know why. I have seen several emails back and forth with both the Department of Purchasing and Action Target, and it appears as though Action Target was trying to figure out when do we submit our appeal, but the language language of the ordinance, of your ordinance, is pretty clear. It's got to be done within 10 calendar days. And there's no, there's nothing in the ordinance that says you get any relief from that. It's there, and it's there in black and white. So even as late as December 20, Mr. Tomaszewski from Action Target is writing to the purchasing department saying, based on FQC's acknowledgement of award, should we initiate our protest according to Article 12 of the county purchasing ordinance, we understand that our window to protest, once awarded, is limited and request clarification when the protest period officially begins. I understand the question, but the question is easily answered by the county ordinance. It's 10 days. And now we're still having discussion about it on December 20. Now 18 days past the time when the appeal should have been submitted. The question appears to kind of say, look, do we protest following the award of the contract? But that's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance says the protest has to be submitted within 10 days of the denial of the protest. So Mr. Latondra writes back, and he says, yes. He writes back on the 21st, yes, the protest windows are limited. I denied your protest to me November 22, 2022. 10 days starts from that. That deadline has passed. If you wish to appeal my decision, Section 12104 states the appeal must be made within 10 calendar days from receipt of the decision. Wasn't done. At some point, Mr. Latondra sent an email saying, look, if you want to appeal something, I'll give you till December 30th. But it's not clear to me, and it wasn't expressed in the letter, in the correspondence from Mr. Latondra, whether he was giving them an opportunity to appeal the lateness, the late aspect, the fact that the appeal was untimely, or giving them an opportunity to appeal the denial of the protest, in which Mr. Latondra said, you can't submit any part of a bid by virtue of an email. It has to be submitted in a new bid package. So the letter that you have received from Action Target, I believe, is dated the 23rd. It's late. It's too late. It's late under your ordinance. There's no excuse for it being late. And the appeal should be denied on that basis alone.
Can I ask a question? I'm
Sure.
sorry to interrupt. It's just with the timeline, because before you go into something else. It said the sealed bids were open on November 3rd, correct?
Yes.
Then you, Inverse wrote to the purchasing department on November 2nd to protest the consideration of reduction.
Yeah,
So how did you know?
I made it. It's a typo by me.
Okay.
Sorry.
So what date should that be?
I think it was the 12th.
Okay.
I'm a lousy typist, I have to say, but
All right.
I think I know my law, but I'm not so great at typing. But yes, it was the 12th, and I don't know if that's part of the package that you have or not, but the letter went in on the 12th. The decision was made shortly after that.
Okay, I just read, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brian,
Thank
do
you.
you have a question?
That helps a lot.
I was just wondering if you are
Yeah,
prepared
got it.
for comments in terms of conclusions which perhaps members have derived.
Well, let's let them, I don't want to say let them have their say, but let's just let them, I mean, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Now the substantive issue, which is whether that email that purports to reduce the bid by $100,000, which, by the way, is just $7,000 or so, $7,000 under our bid, whether that last second email should be considered as part of the bid. The bidding instructions, the publications relating to the bid, every addendum that ever came out, they all say the same thing. Bids have to be made either by delivery of a sealed bid package, or that sealed bid package has to be received by mail. There can't be any electronic transmission of a bid or any part of a bid. Mr. Latondra made it pretty clear about what section 3.10 of the instructions to bidders states, and that is any change to a bid has to be made by substitution of another bid. That doesn't mean, and so if you look at this in context, that doesn't mean you could send an email in saying, here's my new bid, you have to submit a new bid, a new sealed bid. Anything else is non-compliant. And again, the law in Illinois is pretty clear. Bid instructions have to be followed to a T. So Action Target failed to do this. I mean, FQC Frederick Quinn did not have authority to accept any reduction of a bid and then transmit it to, in some fashion, to the county, if it did at all. FQC didn't have authority to accept revised bids or revisions to bids. If that was the case, that would have been stated in the bid instructions. In fact, the bid instructions are clear that sealed bids have to be delivered to the county, and it has to be in writing, either in a mail or in a drop-off form. Mr. Latondra read the fact that bidders are going to be held strictly to bid proposals as submitted, and that was instruction 3.11.
I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, does committee members have any questions or concerns about that aspect of this? I mean,
I don't have any questions. I think that, yeah.
I mean, we're all pretty clear on that whole situation. I don't, you're getting paid by the hour, so I don't need it,
Oh, I'm cheap, though.
Oh, are you? Oh, yeah.
Good to know.
Let me just, and I appreciate that. I want to cut to the chase, but I want to be very clear
I get
about
you.
where we are.
You're supposed to do your job, so.
Yes.
There were 4 addenda issued here, and, today was the first time, I think, we have heard that Action Target had the addenda, knew what the contract, knew what the job required, and however they bid it, not my concern, but if they wanted to fix it, there was a way to fix it, and they didn't do it. We had no problem bidding on the basis of the information that we had, and we bid the low bid of the sealed bids. So that was pretty clear. Addressing Commissioner Sager's question about what's the role of Frederick Quinn here. Yeah, Frederick Quinn is there to facilitate the process, but not authorized, clearly not authorized, under any of the bidding materials, any of the instructions, the pre-bid meeting, the addenda, not authorized to accept bids on behalf of bidders informally. I'm not sure I heard your name, Mr. Hayes?
Hayes.
Mr. Hayes, sorry.
No problem.
Mr. Hayes said, the normal process is to have sealed bids, is to look at sealed bids. It's not to take something outside of the scope of a sealed bid. And that would be consistent with the instructions in the law. One more thing. There is a reference in the letter that Mr. Davis read earlier to section 3.102 of the county ordinance, and he said that permits modifications by electronic transmission. And the specific provision is section 3-102.14. That's the paragraph of the ordinance. And it doesn't say anything about the fact that if you want to modify your bid, you can send it by electronic transmission. In fact, what it says is the following. It says, if you want to correct or withdraw inadvertent erroneous bids, there's a process for doing it. It doesn't say you can modify. I mean, it's really important because that's not what it says. It doesn't say you can modify. You can correct or withdraw inadvertently erroneous bids. So, to me, that means if you make a typo, like I made in my letter, you can resubmit it, and you can come in and say, look, I made a mistake. But you can't rebid it. You can't submit a 10% reduction and say, oh, we made an inadvertent error here. We overestimated this. That's not what that provision's for. And in fact, again, there's a procedure if you want to correct inadvertent errors, and the procedure is you have to submit the correction in writing in a particular way, and it has to then be followed up with a mailed confirmation of that change. So that section doesn't have anything to do with this. This is not that kind of situation. This is a rebid that failed to follow the instructions. Plain and simple.
Do you guys have anything you wanted to?
I don't have anything, but I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Do any of the other bidders that came in person have anything they want to say? Sure. Come on up.
I'll be brief so I can stand.
That's fine. You just need to speak your name.
My name is Craig Mackey, Vice President of Sales for D5 Ranges. We were a bidder in the process of the McHenry County Jail Training Range project. And being present here today and hearing the testimony and arguments presented, it's become clear to me that there's compelling information delivered, and that this process should be considered for rebid of the entire project. It's the only logical solution to what's been put on the table today. I've been intimately involved with the project for a long time, through to our submission of a sealed bid. And again, hearing the arguments presented, that's the only path I see, and I would encourage the members of the board to follow this. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I address that?
Nope. You had your chance, sorry. Anything else by committee members? What, do you have something?
No question.
Oh, no?
No question, I have some comments.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, with all due respect to all parties here, I think it's important for us to consider the factual information that's been presented today. First, it's important for us to understand that action targets stipulated to certain facts. First, that they participated in the bidding meeting. Second, that they received a packet that was complete with all of the bidding requirements and included addendums that had all specific information associated with those requirements. And third, that Action Target did hear the oral presentation, which did cover all of that information, not just for Action Target, but for all bidders. And that included, and in that discussion, identifying the limitations on electronic communications in terms of the bidding process. It included the fact that the county had a specific individual in the purchasing department with whom communications should be held, and also identified that new bids must be complete. In other words, if you make a new bid, you had to make a completely new total bid. I think that those stipulations are important to recognize. I do grant, absolutely grant, that FQC stipulated to the fact that an FQC employee made a mistake in advising Action Target about adjusting the bid via technical or electronic process. That's a mistake. And I do also grant that the county stipulated to the fact that FQC served as their agent. However, and I think this is a huge point, however, in the bid requirements, it explicitly states explicitly states that communication should be made with the county purchasing department employee, not FQC. Very important. And further, there is absolutely an inherent responsibility on bidders. It doesn't matter whether this bidding process or any other bidding process, whether it's here, whether it's a municipality, whether it's in the state, does not matter. There's an inherent responsibility for all bidders to be cognizant of all requirements and ordinances associated with the bidding process. That is their responsibility. It is no one else's responsibility. And so again, with all due respect to all parties, I therefore do not believe that we have any appropriate legal option but to deny the appeal that is before us from Action Target.
Any other comments? Good. Go ahead, Kelly.
So this definitely is an unfortunate circumstance. When Mr. Davis was looking through his bid, he saw some mistakes and he wanted to correct it. And as Mr. Sager said, there's a specific ordinance, and even in the legal notice, it says that purchasing needs to be spoken to, and they are the contact, and everything has to be written and submitted in a whole new sealed bid. So what if we allow, if we do not reject this appeal, I'm very I think we need to be careful about setting a precedent, because this may open us up to having more contractors say, well, I emailed you, and that's not what our ordinance states. So we need to make sure we follow the ordinance. And I know this is an unfortunate circumstance, as it was an error by an employee, and I wish there was a way we could rectify that also. But I agree with Mr. Sager that we should deny the appeal.
Okay. Any other comments?
Are we going to vote on this?
Yeah, so item 5.
I do have a comment, thank you.
Oh.
Just get my opinion on it. I think the county purchasing department followed the proper technical aspects of the bidding process. Action Target had clear verbal and written instructions about the bidding process and should not have relied on any verbal or electronic direction from FQC, and should have known and had clear direction that they needed to contact our purchasing department about any of those issues. So I would not grant their appeal.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we have a process in place. I think it was followed. I do think it is unfortunate, if somebody gives out information, but it is on the contractor to follow the ordinance as written.
I agree. I don't think it was a fatal flaw in the process. Unfortunate, yes, but not fatal. So item 5.1A is the action that we need to take in regard to the actual appeal that was made to the committee, timely or not. It was accepted. So with that, would someone like to make a motion to deny the... Brian?
I move that this committee deny the appeal relative to the bid package number 1-11 for the Sheriff's Joint Law Enforcement Fire Range to Action Target Incorporated.
I'll second that.
Larry seconds that. Any discussion about that? If not, we'll go and vote. Brian?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, that motion carries. The next item that we have is whether this bid package should be rebid and sent back out again, which is an independent decision made by this committee and direction for purchasing. Does anyone have any comments about having it sent back out for rebid?
I do have a question for Mr. Alejandra. So the there was five, well, one was not provided. Four bids. We've heard from D5. Would the Savage Range also come to contact us about any irregularities they saw in our process this
Can you
time?
say that again? I missed the first part.
So Savage Range Systems also had a bid.
Okay, gotcha.
Did they have any contact about how they thought there might be an irregularity that we should consider here?
No, all bidders in this process for bid package 111 acknowledged all addendums and all information in their bids and accepted it, and all submitted bids straightforward as in a sealed bid.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion to either send package 1-11 out for rebid or to not send it out for rebid, either way?
Me?
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
I would make a motion that we would not send package 111 back out for rebid.
Okay.
I'll second.
There's Carolyn seconds that motion. Any discussion on that? If not, we'll go to vote then. Larry?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, that motion carries also. That ends the appeal portion of this hearing. 5.2 is a discussion with Frederick Quinn pertaining to this bidding process. I had asked that to be added. So Jack, I understand as president of the company, you can't control what your employees do. But as you can see,
Causes a lot of frustration,
it sure does.
and I apologize on behalf of our company, and this is not standard operating procedure. Like I said, we were dealing with like 150 different contractors all in the process of bidding and working with purchasing and making sure we're trying to follow your process and adhere to that process. And it just was, Fred is a 46-year employee of Frederick Quinn Corporation. He's a seasoned professional, and it's just an anomaly. I apologize, and to purchasing, I know this has put a lot of extra burden on them and on you and for the bidders, and it's not standard operating procedure for our company.
I mean, we, as a county, we entrusted you with this project because we realized that we didn't have the resources to be able to handle something this large. And so as unfortunate as this has become, I mean, we appreciate the work that you're doing, and I don't know I don't know what procedures, I guess, you could put in place to make sure this doesn't happen again. Naturally, you know, the work that we're doing with you is you know, already in process, and but you know, naturally we'll have other projects that potentially come up, and nothing personal against the company, but this is a concern, at least for myself, and I'm sure probably for the committee members. Go ahead.
Please understand that this, for me as an individual, does not alter my full faith and confidence in accuracy. However, for you to be here today and to say that, you know, we had a lot of things going on, there was X number of bids out there, we had to deal with this type of thing, and it was hot, if you will, that's the job. And that's the responsibility that you place upon your shoulders and the shoulders of the company. And so something has to, I think, take place, as Chairman stated, to kind of rectify the situation, not just now, but in the future. So with all due respect, again, it doesn't alter my full faith and confidence, but I encourage, as we continue to work together in a strong professional partnership with the company, that you consider these concerns.
I respect that. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? No? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Thank you.
You want to add, or?
You see fit, I've got it in the record.
Okay, we're on to item 6, was new business. We have 2 resolutions that were put in front of you that were not able to get onto our agenda. We have both Joe and Mike's back there, that wanted to at least, I wanted to give them an opportunity to talk real quick about these two resolutions that you'll see tomorrow on the board packet. So, Joe, go ahead, why don't you come up first. Well, we're not going to take any action on them here because they weren't in our packet, so they didn't. They weren't able to meet obligation for notice. But Joe wanted and Mike wanted to at least come forward and present them to us and see if we have any questions.
We'll put these under new and unfinished business when we repost on Friday if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
We are dealing with this one.
Which one?
Okay.
It's this one, the orange?
Orange, the orange press one, yes.
Yes, hold on. So, if I'm okay to go ahead and start?
Yep.
So,
Introduce yourself.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
And you have more than 3 minutes.
Okay, great. So there was some legislation enacted not so long ago that set up the necessity for us to mail out invitations to be part of a permanent vote-by-mail list. The legislation was not very clear, and if you ask clerks across the state what they think it means, you'll get almost as many opinions on what it means as you ask clerks. For some, it means there's an or in there. That means you can have a choice between these two approaches. It talks about notice, and to some, notice means something in the newspaper. To some, it means email. To some, it means some combination of those things. And it was supposed to be tuned up in the last legislative session, and we had lobbyists in Springfield ready with assurances that it was in front of the right people, it was going to get voted on, it's going to be cleared up, and we'd have some more clear direction given. So that didn't happen. And I think you'll find as the days and weeks go on that across different counties, you'll find different responses to this. From nothing being mailed out at all to some doing email, some doing notices in newspapers, and so on and so forth. It's my position that we should give the greatest amount of notice in the most common currency, if you will, that we give notice, and so that decision was to send via postal mail a notice again that we just did just before the general election, same notice, to registered voters who had not already accepted the invitation to join the vote by mail. So we had rushed to get an RFP out. We got the RFP back, and so this is the culmination of that. It's a little less than $40,000 for printing. It's probably around $110,000 for postage. Our hope is that in the upcoming session that they will clarify their intent as to what this notice and this invitation should be. We're hopeful, and the idea is that it wouldn't happen every election cycle, that would only happen on even number years election cycle. But that's where we sit today, and that's why you have the resolution in front of you in the short time frame that you have. So, whatever questions you have. Ms. Meshes.
So your understanding is that the current legislation from the state is you have to do this before every election? Because, right, you just did this.
Yes,
right?
so it's a interesting, and it's one of those things that it looks good until you try to actually put it in use, and then, oh my, that printed out smaller than I would have thought.
It's a 3-point.
It's like, wow, yeah. So I'm at the very bottom of my progressives. So it says, notice for vote by mail ballot, an election authority shall notify all qualified voters not more than 90 days nor less than 45 days before a general or consolidated election of the option for a permanent vote by mail status using the following notice, including the application for personal vote by mail status, and then it goes on about the notice. So the question of the word or in there before a general or consolidated election, could mean that you could choose one or the other, right? But, because that's what or means, right? You have a choice between this and this. But the way they couch it, it doesn't really seem like they meant or. It seems like they said you have to do it between, they really meant it as an and. So that's one of the things that's been discussed. So what we understood the revised language to be is that it would be before general elections, that consolidated elections would not be a part of that. So we're hopeful, but
Oh, so you think that will be the interpretation?
that's what we understood. So that's what we had discussed with the lobbyists. They seemed in agreement. The people they were talking to seemed to be in agreement. I'm not sure specifically who that was. But yes, and then also in terms of what notice meant, if that was notice by mail, which is typically the common currency unless someone says otherwise, whether that could include email, if we had email addresses. It doesn't explicitly say here that I can even exclude the people who've already offered to be a part of the permanent vote by mail list, but I think that otherwise it's absurd that I would, if they just last month or two sent us a notice saying they want to be a part, I think we cause more confusion if we ask them again, not to mention wasting money. Other questions?
So this is showing that it was already accounted for in the budget.
Yes. So we had put it in the budget because at the time that we started putting the budget together, which was, June of last year, it was still on the books, and we didn't have what we expected was a firm commitment as to how that was going to be changed. So we have it in the budget.
There's actually more than enough.
Right,
yeah.
there's more than, because obviously we're anticipating this, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so the question is whether or not we really need to, given the fact that it was an or, that hasn't been determined. We just did do this.
Yeah. I think it's, I tend to give deference to the greatest opportunity to engage people in this, in the process of people expressing their will, and I would fight strongly against not mailing this to people and giving them the opportunity. And from I hate spending the money, but I would much rather that the people of this county get the greatest opportunity to vote that they possibly can, and have had a number of kind of strenuous discussions with my peers about differing opinions on that. But
I have a second bite at the apple, I guess. May I?
No, not until everyone else has the first bite. Larry?
We have a backup package of the info for the bidding in the county board package by tomorrow, so we can review it before the cow.
what other information?
The other bids.
The actual bids that were submitted.
Okay.
So we only have the resolution, so.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely.
The
Yeah,
bid
we just put
results
the-
and all that stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
There was one that was $1,100 lower, and that's, just to give you, there were 6 total bids. The rest of them were considerably higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, just a little curiosity on my part, I guess, because I signed up to vote by mail, just to work through the process. Then I took it in and I did vote, and at no time did I think I was signing up for that in any permanent way. Was there been a check mark that says, yes, I want to be a permanent vote by mail person, or just, how does that work?
So there were, yes, this is another issue. So you received in the mail, last go around, if that's what you acted on, one side of that piece of paper was a letter explaining what was on the other side of it. And on that, the side that you actually filled out, the form part of it, it talked about whether you wanted to get your vote by mail, and I think it was clear, but it's prescribed by law, that it was a permanent choice, and that it gave you options for whether you wanted general and consolidated elections only, or primaries as well, and if partisan primary, which party you wanted to be associated with for the purposes of partisan primary
That
ballots.
was a couple years ago, I don't remember that part, but that might have been my mistake.
If it was a couple years ago, this process didn't exist.
Okay, it was the first time that...
First time was just before this last general election.
Okay, so it may not have been on there that
Right.
particular day.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, wouldn't have been on there.
It wouldn't have been. Okay, that's why I don't remember it.
Yeah, that's right.
You
Good
don't
memory.
know, you just don't know.
Yeah.
Kelly?
Thank you for doing this. I know it's a lot
Sure.
of work and it's a lot of money, but you're right, as many people who can voice their opinion.
Right.
So I was just, for my curiosity, did we include this in supplementals, or was this just part of the budget?
It was just part of the budget, as I
As part
recall.
of his budget.
Yeah.
his
Did we have a
department's budget.
supplemental in there for?
I don't think so.
Request at the beginning?
It's a mandate. It's not an optional.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I do think, unless we took it from somewhere else in your budget, I mean, we admitted this.
Yeah, I want to say like 280,000 or,
Well, it was a 200 even.
It was 200 even, that was a
Postage.
supplemental for additional postage.
Okay.
That was normally in the other account.
We kind of had it highlighted, as we came down to this wire, if we needed to find more savings, this was going to be better.
Right.
so we did approve it as a
What's that?
supplemental? We did
Yes.
approve it as a supplemental,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
And the question has always been whether or not the postage should be in my budget or just as part of the administration budget. So I show it, and then how we account for it after the fact, if it is fine, but it's a substantial cost, I think it's worthy of notice.
And Carrie and I were talking, I think we kind of had it still highlighted as, see what happens with the legislation, we might go back and ask Joe for it back if we
Yeah,
need it.
right. And to which I said, glad to have it, glad to give it, right.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? or
It
no?
was really more about the process, because kind of getting back to what Larry was saying. So would you, and just for clarification, if you mark partisan primary, what happens if you want to go in and just go and vote in a different, primary? Can you just, do you just bring it in?
You just bring it in,
Okay.
surrender your ballot, and vote
Okay.
however you wish.
Okay.
The only thing I didn't like about that was that I didn't get an option to check that I never want to get mails. And
Yeah.
That's what I wish we would do.
That was one of
because-
the options that have been suggested. I don't think that has been warmly received, however.
Well, but for me, I want to go in and use a machine, so,
Right.
and I don't want something mailed to my house every primary and general election, so I'd
Yeah.
like to be able to do that option also.
Yes, yeah, has been suggested, and again,
And the cost of it.
not,
Right.
not well received.
Well, but,
And if you should be able to say, if I don't want, I acknowledge, thanks for the invitation.
yeah,
But I don't care for it.
correct.
Right.
And that would
That makes sense.
take out another chunk of people.
Yeah, well,
So why can't we do that?
so the form is prescribed by law.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So I was wondering, did you get any feedback on the last election about people being unclear on the process? So like, I had this discussion with many people before, when you saw the first mailer saying this is a vote by mail for forever, that the process of, if you have the mail, if you now have this, you can't vote unless you bring it to the, you can't vote in person unless you bring this to the election judge, give it to them to get it, and go, otherwise you'll have to have I forgot the.
Provisional ballot.
Provisional ballot.
Yeah.
And so did you have any feedback, or no, because now you had all these provisional votes?
We didn't get any feedback. We tried to make the instructions on the other side as short and as clear as possible. There's 3 paragraphs, I think, I'm going by memory.
Yeah.
Why did I get this?
Right.
What do I do if I don't want it? And what do I do if I want to vote in person or something like that?
Right, yeah.
And if you showed up and you didn't know that you had to bring it, we can do a provisional ballot, and that's
Right.
not a big deal. And we didn't have as many of those, frankly, as I expected that we might have had.
Okay.
But no, we didn't. I honestly can't recall one question on that.
Okay,
issue.
yeah, no, I read it when it came to my house, and I did think it was, well, you did a good job with the mailing.
Well, thanks.
But then the discussions I then had with my people I know about this, about whether they should do it or not do it,
Yeah.
I was concerned that it would create more confusion at first
Yeah.
for people who don't know what they took it, now they have it, they don't know what to do with it, right? But
Yeah.
there wasn't more issues, because I do tend to think, and I don't usually say this, it's a waste of money
Yes.
to reach out to do this every election.
Oh, boy, I can't agree more.
Yeah.
I think every presidential election, every gubernatorial election would be sufficient, for goodness sakes. Every 2 years it seems a lot, but like every year is completely ridiculous. And the other thing is, the state's not funding any of this. It's all down to us to pay for it. And some little counties are really struggling. And frankly, that's some of those counties that are, likely not going to do anything.
Do we have any feedback from the state's attorney office about our likelihood of getting in trouble if we don't do this?
Sort of. I asked about, I guess I'm waiving my right about the exercising my option as it appears to exist in the word or. And, in reading it in its entirety, it really seems that they meant to say and. And again, to give the greatest opportunity to people to express their political will, it would seem to treat it like an and would, at this point, be the best option.
Okay.
Not lower.
Committee okay with this going to new and unfinished business? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll make a note to have the full bid package included. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike?
Dr. Mike Marine, McHenry County Coroner. Hopefully this will be painless for you guys a little bit. Anyways, so every year I really come back to the Finance Committee, and obviously because we don't budget for worst case scenario, our toxicology, autopsies, and transportation throughout the year, things of that nature. Actually, it's down this year about $35,000 or something like that from last year. Worked with obviously finance to figure out exactly what we were looking for as far as going on, because our budgeting process is that we do not allow an invoice until a report is done on an autopsy. Those autopsies take about 3 months, sometimes maybe a little bit longer, but on average they're around 3 months. And just so everybody knows, this is common throughout every coroner office. It's just the way it is. It takes time. We have to do toxicology. We send that out to a national bank for toxicology, which is in Pennsylvania, which everybody uses if they don't have their own lab, such as Cook County or any of the big cities. Outside of that, most places throughout the nation send a lot of there's pretty much 2 places that are sent. One's in California, one's in Pennsylvania. So anyways, this is just to increase the budget to cover those costs that need to be taken care of.
So my only question is, I'm a little confused. So we're a month and a half into our new budget year.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you anticipate or ready that your budget that we just approved wouldn't have enough money in it?
Because when ME does an autopsy, so we have them broken down into, they're under contract of what a full autopsy cost and what we call an external exam cost. And toxicology can vary depending upon what is ordered and things of that nature. So, but I have a running order of what autopsy was performed, whether it was a full autopsy or whether it wasn't. So we don't have paid out. I know exactly pretty much what we're dealing with as far as that goes, of what we have not paid yet.
But I'm confused. Okay, so what I'm confused about is, so you're a month and a half into your fiscal year.
Correct.
But you are coming to us with an emergency appropriation for more money for a budget line item only a month and a half into a fiscal year. Like, I would expect.
No. This is for last year's budget.
Last year's budget.
Correct.
So
This is an extension from last year's budget.
Why does it
It's
say
not-
fiscal year 2023 then?
Oh, that is a typo. I
Uh,
believe.
No,
Wait. Let me hand it over to her because we talked about this yesterday, and so she can.
So what we did last year was, it was almost the same exact resolution, but it came forward in January. amending the prior year budget, but then we automatically had to add it into the roll forward, because these are for 22 invoices, but the amount is not really material, and then like you were saying, they could be paid as late as June for a prior fiscal year. So really, instead of amending 22 and then rolling it forward, we're just amending 23.
So you're saying you're gonna have 22 costs paid in 23 fiscal year?
About 50,000. So we have some to roll forward, the remaining budget from 22.
Okay, so are we going to make that change moving forward then, that we're just gonna have more money in that budget line item, so theoretically we wouldn't see this in January?
Well, I think the challenge is staying within the budget policy of maintaining a maintenance budget, and then with these variable high-cost items, because the resolution last year was like 80,000.
Well, I get that aspect of it, but to me, when I'm looking at an emergency appropriation for funds a month and a half into a fiscal year, understanding that this is, we're going to cover costs from last fiscal year, so it's kind of a little bit different. But typically speaking, I would like to see these things in, pick a month, September, October timeframe.
Use up the 23 budget first and then see what you need.
Yeah, right. So that's why I'm asking if we're gonna make that change, because now if we're rolling this into 23 now, which is what you're saying, then can we continue to do that forward so that we're not looking at this again?
Well, no, because you always start based on your original budget, so this would be revised budget.
Yeah, but you're gonna have a revised increased budget already.
But I guess the challenge is, you could come forward with the supplemental during the budget process, but you don't know how much it's gonna be. Is it 80,000? Is it 50,000? So
I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to think of a better way to do this. And why I'm questioning this is because you're saying we're adding 41,000 to 23 budget year. So he's going to, when he comes time to do the 24 budget year, he's gonna have an increase already of 41,000 because we've already approved this resolution. So that's gonna be a new base of something. I don't know what the.
when you talk about the maintenance budget, it's based on the original budget, which was approved in November. And then we just add to that.
Well, okay, but
Mike, would you rather burn through the 23 money and adjust in July, so we have a better idea?
Well, all I'm saying is that costs aren't gonna go down. We're still gonna have people dying. You're still gonna have to do all the things that you're doing. So really it depends on how many people pass away and what type of testing you need to do in a particular year, right?
Correct.
And that's why it fluctuates so much up or down. So all I'm saying is we're already anticipating 41,000 additional just to cover 22 costs, which we might not pay for 6 to 8 months is what it sounds like. So all I'm saying is that, again, budget process wise, I understand maintenance budget thing, but I think similar to the whole fuel situation, we gotta kind of rethink how we're looking at this, and perhaps this is the new maintenance number. And if he doesn't end up spending it all, then that's fine. It goes back into, we can utilize that in the future. We can roll that forward. That's my thought process on how to deal with this.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian?
Is this pretty typical? Has this happened for a number of years in a row now, or is it just kind of the last couple of years that this has occurred?
It happens.
I feel like we're always kind of playing catch up.
All right, then absolutely, I agree with the chairman's comments. I think we need to look at this in the reverse way. I think we're looking at it backwards. And so I would concur with the chairman. I think that we need to build this into the budget. We need to increase the budget so that we're not having to come back and revise the previous budget or to utilize funds from a new fiscal year to cover costs of the past fiscal year. I just think we have to be more forward thinking.
Yes.
I would say, instead of having numerous resolutions throughout the year, we have one later in the year that would make it much easier for budgeting. And also, we do need to have a discussion about supplementals and what we consider a supplemental. maybe changing that in the future because they're not really supplementals.
We just don't want to budget more in any line than we need to, and this is the result.
Yeah,
We could have a really good 23, and Dr. Rain could order far fewer medical examinations than we did this year.
Well, maybe we add a line item that says adjustment for inflation
Yeah.
or something like that instead of calling it supplemental.
you
I'm
can't
just saying,
predict,
it's-
so.
the technical part of it, it doesn't matter to me as far
Okay.
as how the accounting works, but this is what I need for this year.
I understand.
So that's kind of where, if we need to, obviously redo the resolution.
No, I think it's fine, I just didn't, the way it's written is confusing because you're saying that we're increasing this year's budget for last year's expenses,
Correct,
which,
understand.
yeah.
For the 2023 budget, did you take into account that we do this every year, and so that this portion of the budget got increased
Did
back in
not get
November?
increased.
We did not increase it in November, even though we know this. All right, well, live and learn in Finance Committee.
I'm just
Push this
saying-
hard, yes.
I'm just
That's why I'm
that-
saying we need to,
Yes, right.
This, again, this was probably a really good year as far as not having to do as many autopsies as we did,
Mhm.
per se. So last year was pretty higher number, so you're probably looking in that fluctuation range is what I would say.
I'm sorry, so you said 21 was higher than 22? Because last
Yes.
year.
Yes.
80,000.
So this was a good year, and they're still coming back and asking for, was it 40-some thousand? 41,000.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree, that this should be somehow put in the budget up front, otherwise,
Or at least closer.
I mean, if this is a good year and you're still 41,000 short, we need to look at it in a different way than backstepping to the next year, otherwise we're gonna be here in 2024 paying for 2023.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's.
And at the end of, when we start using the budget, what I did for this past year's budget is I kind of took how many autopsies, if it's 140, 150, 160, 170, whatever, and kind of laid out that cost. And then that way you guys have maybe a better understanding of where we want to look at it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine.
So-
And you thought this was straightforward.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
This is gonna get done, need to get done whether we do it now or
I
July.
agree, yes. No,
Well, in
But looking
July,
forward to next year, we gotta do something different.
I understand.
right, in July, we want to know also how much more they really need to ask for. So,
Well, when he starts doing his budget for '24, then he'll know. That's the numbers that he should be putting together.
right, yeah, so.
Yep, I mean, and let's be honest, I've done the numbers month after month after month and looked back. There is no correlation that 1 month is always somewhere similar. They are all over the board every year.
Winter always seems to be higher, though.
Nope. FYI. no.
Lately, I've been looking through the obits, and it's like
Yeah.
5 pages long
Yeah.
instead of 2, so.
No, it's like, maybe more people are putting it in there, but as far as the numbers go, that's
All right.
kind of So-
Stats, those, we don't have anything else to write around.
Is that what it is? Oh. All right, we all good with moving this?
Are we gonna move it forward, or are we just gonna have them ask for a supplemental later?
No, we have to move this forward so they can do the appropriation.
Oh, okay.
So is this okay if we go into new and unfinished? All right, so that takes care of our new business. We're on to 7, which is routine consent agenda. What are you raising your hand for?
We kept something out.
Well, we have, so just let me tell you,
Okay.
items 7.2 and 7.6, we are not going to deal with, because both of those were tabled by previous committees. So 7.2 and 7.6 are gone. 7.1 and 7.8, you have modified resolutions at your desk with some red stuff on them. So we'll be actually taking action for 7.1 and 7.8 on the modified resolutions. And if you need to take a minute to read the modifications to 7.1 and 7.8, that's fine. I'm okay with taking a second so you can look at those. Otherwise, with that being said,
are there items, resolutions that committee members would like removed from consent to be dealt with separately?
7.4, 7.15, and 7.18, please.
7.4. 7 what?
15 and 18.
15 and 18. Okay. Committee members have anything else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 7.1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. Someone want to make that motion? Larry moves that.
I'll second.
Who was that? Kelly seconds that? Okay. We'll go to vote. Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. So the only ones we have left are 4, 15, and 18. Item 4, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 7.4. Larry moves.
Second.
Teresa seconds. Kelly, you pulled this one?
Yep, I did. I just had some questions about, and here it says prevailing wage is mandatory on here. Wondering how do we know, first of all, do we pay the subcontractor directly, or does that funnel through the contractor?
I believe in this instance, they are the prime contractor. So CJM is using their own forces here.
It said there was another one that was going to be a painter. Painting and miscellaneous Dulcino construction. Is that the same thing as CJM?
Oh, yeah, he may bring a painter in.
Okay.
They are responsible for sending their information on payroll to IDLE. We do not see that information, whether they're paying prevailing or not. That goes, it's a state requirement that they receive that information, not us.
Oh, it all goes to the state. So, and maybe this is out of your purview, but how is that checked? I mean, how is it checked that prevailing wage is being paid?
How does IDLE check that? I do not know.
All right, that's all I had, was just that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll go to vote then. Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Larry? Yes. Teresa?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. We're on to item 7.15. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Teresa?
Second.
Brian seconds. Kelly, you pulled this one?
Yes, I did. 15. All right, so I was kind of confused on this one because it was saying, it seemed like the resolution was for a contract with a supplier, but then you were asking, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it here. Then in the bottom it talked about wheelchair. So is this for the purchase of something or just so we can have a
So
contract?
direct supply, we have a contract with for a lot of smaller items, like an oxygen concentrator, you might need to replace a filter, you get that through direct supply. We also buy the equipment from them. So the way we've always done this is we enter into an agreement with them for all of the small parts, and then I bring all the large items back through the committee process. So if we buy a bed, and the bed's $3,000, that would go back through the normal purchasing process rather than just on contract items. So yes, it's a contract, but there's also a side piece to that. So they're kind of like your Home Depot of long-term care, right? You can get just about anything you need through direct supply. But we still shop the other suppliers just in case.
Okay, so this is just a contract saying we're gonna get the bigger stuff.
The smaller ones. Bigger stuff goes through outside of that.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay, any other questions? Go to vote. Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Larry? Yes. Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. We're on to item 7.18. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Teresa?
Second.
Larry seconds. Kelly?
So, I'm sorry, I was not able to listen to the meeting yesterday about Valley High. So, the assessments that were from April, May, and June, now, were those a surprise?
So the amount was.
we knew that on July 1, there was going to be a new Medicaid reimbursement system in place. Now, the way that in Illinois, the Medicaid program gets funded, it's through the collection of what is called a bed tax or an assessment. That is then, they take that money, they apply it to a federal FMAP program, the federal government matches it to a percentage, and then that money comes back to the state, which then is built into our rates. So there's been negotiations that are, as of this moment, still ongoing as to what that actual rate may be. So there's legislation on the governor's desk as we speak that this resolution might be a moot point. So we don't really know yet. We knew that on July 1 there'd be a rate increase. County nursing homes were not supposed to be hit at the $22 and change rate. They were supposed to be at $7, but the legislation didn't include it. The legislation on the governor's desk does. So, again, this could all be moot, but then there's the second piece of that is we don't know if the governor does sign it that puts the county nursing homes back at the $7 occupied bed tax rate, whether or not he'll say, okay, that's effective going with all assessments forward or retroactive to the July 1 date. So one or both parts of that may be needed and or not. So I was hoping to have some clarity before this morning, but I don't.
Okay, so this is kind of a just in case.
Yep, and we talked about it at the committee level that if they retroactively don't apply it, then this money we just won't take it. We'll put it back. But we did not, part of the problem is when we built the budget in May and June, we didn't know where we were going to be sitting with this bed tax, and then we didn't expect the retroactive piece to it either.
Which is a huge increase.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous.
But the rates went up so much. The hard part is to be able to say, well, we're paying X more, but we're getting 2 times that back on the reimbursement side, so it kind of washes out. This is only one piece of the puzzle, but the rate went up significantly because of the bed tax.
And it's kind of ridiculous that they put it retroactive too, but okay. That's all.
It's
Thank
kind of
you.
the way the state does things.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go to vote then. Brian?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. All right, we are on to section 8, presentations. So we are required by our board rules to do these. I argued with Pete. He said, oh, you gotta do it. I'm like, all right, fine. So,
Adam guaranteed that he'd seen enough of him already today, so he's going to be good.
but he looks so handsome.
He
so-
does, yes. That's been later, not in the meeting, not publicly, but yes. You do look very handsome.
Adam, you do have an answer for Kelly's question
I'm sorry, what was your question?
on the labor, or,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, the prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Yeah, for about 2.5 years now, the vendors are required to send it to the Department of Labor. And they'll look at it if there's any question, and I get investigations all the time, not, well, I shouldn't say all the time, but frequently throughout the year a few times, and we have to provide all our information. So we know they're working on it. But for about 2.5 years now, the vendor is responsible for that. The county is not required to collect anything, which has been very nice for my department with everything else we've got going on, so. I apologize. You've got a heavy dose of purchasing this morning. You want to know what we do on a day-to-day basis? That is not it. To Mike's point, if it's been 10 years, and I apologize sincerely for it being under my watch that you had to have one.
Hey, life is grandiose. Hey, you know what? And it went very well, so it was fine.
I
I
think so
also
too.
want to say, I appreciate, like, you didn't point out that you were being generous in telling them, oh, you can still bring it to us, even though technically by ordinance, they can't, but you'd already,
I
yeah.
would have argued with the attorney on that because the ordinance, and I appreciate when people quote my ordinance back to me because I usually know, I'm embarrassed to say it's like 65 pages, but the more these things come up, the more I realize I've got it up here. The ordinance qualifies all deadlines and says it's like or other notice from the purchasing department or the county. So that by virtue of having communication with them, I run the risk of following that language where it perpetually extends. Where I failed is in the first letter denying them, I should have given them a final due date for their appeal, and I did not. Now, I'm going to not be funny, but it's funny to me right now. That was the first email we actually received from Action Target during this whole process. After I denied their email, they suddenly found our email and started contacting us. we didn't hear a word from them via purchasing or via my employee Dewana until that bid process. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I apologize, I did have 2 slides. I neglected to bring them because I had everything else to bring to you this morning, but purchasing.
You can act them out if you want.
What's that?
You can act them out.
Act them out.
Charades.
Images, yeah, right, okay, how do I do that? Now, what we do on a day-to-day basis is set by your ordinance, and that is the purchasing ordinance, which you heard a lot about this morning. You learned a little bit about deviation from that and about what we do as an entity in purchasing. The purchasing ordinance sets the rules by which my department is supposed to follow, and I like to think we do that very well on a daily basis. When we put out a bid, however, you heard it from the attorney this morning, those instructions to bidders, the terms of those bids are what qualify everything. It may fly in the face of our ordinance, but we do that on a regular basis to make sure the bid meets state requirements and the bid meets the needs of the department. It may be a deviation from standard procedure, but as long as it's in that bid document and we evaluate based on that bid document, we're good. They don't have to go back and refer to the ordinance for absolutely everything. We really need to stand on the bid. When do we do a bid? Or an RFP, a request for proposals, or a request for qualifications? You'll see a lot of requests for qualifications coming from the Department of Transportation because they're expensive, they're engineers, and that's carved out in the purchasing ordinance. Anything over $30,000 needs to be an RFQ, an RFP, or a bid. Those also need to be approved by the board, and that will come to the board. So you'll see everything above $30,000. I use DOT as an example. Things get a lot more than $30,000 out of DOT. But between $30,000 and $3,000, we require 3 quotes for anything. There are certain carve-outs and exceptions for different departments that have their own oversight boards, but as a general rule, anything between $3,000 and $30,000, we solicit 3 quotes. Anything under $3,000 is department head discretion. They don't have to come to me, they don't have to come to my team. They have discretion to buy that on their own. We do ask them to go through the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Program that we have, D365, which I believe at least the senior members of this committee are familiar with, our enterprise system. So it does give us a check on it, and I'm proud to say that since we've implemented that, a lot of departments do. I couldn't tell you how many things I see come across my desk for $150, $300, $500, $600, $1,000, $1,500, $2,500 that they don't need to come to us for, but they still do. We are also the contract manager for the county, which is what you saw this morning. That's when it gets a little heavy, but every single contract, every single thing that goes to you, even if it doesn't go to you, if it's under $30,000 and it has a contract attached to it, it's my signature. And again, there are certain exceptions where a grant for the Planning and Development Department or something, federal grants might need to be signed by the chairman of the board. That's no problem, we do that too. Mental health board, the health department have their own oversight board, certainly sign by them, but as a general rule, it's my signature on a contract. That's really what we do in a nutshell on a day-to-day basis. Every requisition, every purchase, everything you see in your budget, every dollar of it, one way or the other, comes through my department. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Adam, do you originate all bid documents and requirements, or do they originate within the departments and then you all have the oversight and approval of those?
Good question. Bid documents, standard procedures, generate from my office. Specifications for that bid, we work with the department to build those specs. We also may work with an engineering firm to build those specs if necessary. So it's a mix, really.
Thank you.
Can you, what's the difference between an RFQ, an RFP, and an RFI?
Good question. I would say an RFQ and an RFI are more or less the same. You're evaluating information and qualifications. The I is information, the Q is qualifications. If you need information from a medical provider about something that we'd ask for their information. If you're asking for qualifications for an engineer, we want to see their qualifications. We, purchasing and the department, evaluates them based on the qualifications or the information provided. It's probably the easiest procurement we do, and it's probably the easiest for the vendors because they're not looking at a litany of specs and pricing everything out at the first point. They're just giving us their information or they're giving us their qualifications so we can evaluate their ability to do whatever the project is that the department needs.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Good to see you all again.
All right.
Thanks, Adam.
Bob, you're on. You're not looking as dapper as Adam here.
What's that? Well, you know what? I don't know, I apologize for that, but I thought it was done yesterday when Teresa came. But
After admin services, there was a tour of the building, and
they know where to find me, so.
so he's going impromptu.
I have just a little handout that you could have for just what the front page is. Our duties, for those of you that are new, are assessment administration through McHenry County, as well as an advisory spot for township assessors who do the assessments in Illinois. I am also Bob Ross, the Chief County Assessment Officer, but also the Clerk of the Board of Review. Our office also is the administration leg of the Board of Review, which offers taxpayers the ability to contest their assessment if they don't agree with it. Our office is set up with 19 employees. We're set up into 3 sections that facilitate the assessment administration component of the job. We have a statistical section, which is called the SA section, which does equalization that we're doing at the same time the Department of Revenue is doing it for McHenry County, but they're also doing it for all counties within Illinois. So we try to stay lockstep with them. They would then, at the end of the year, each time equalization is performed, check back with our information to make sure that everything is, do we have any sales that we'd like thrown out of the sales ratio? It's a 3-year sales ratio that is done every year. They compare the prior 3-year sales to the prior 3-year assessments right before those sales to determine whether equalization is positive or negative. That's when assessments go up. We have a good market. When they go down, when the equalization is negative or close to 1, the market is iffy or it's down. At this point in time for 2023, there's some angst, not only in the market, but probably with taxpayers because CPI is going to be positive, and we're going to feel the effects of the 5% CPI that's going to be reflective on their bills. Typically, tax bills could go up anywhere from minimally $100, $200 based on the CPI, which is 1 or 2% on a $10,000 bill. Well, a $10,000 tax bill this year will go up $500 instead of a typical 1 or 2. That's going to cause some action with taxpayers. Well, every action causes a reaction. And then we don't have any definitive guide, any definitive direction of where the market's going right now. That's a bit of a problem. We know the market slowed down. We know interest rates are higher. We know that if Joe was here today, I could ask him what he thinks, and he'd say, well, it's going down, but it's not definitive yet. So the market is definitely going to be a little bit in shock. I did see where 55% of home buyers the last 2 years, approximately 55%, would not have been able to afford the same home and price if they bought it today. So the only logical way that the market can go is down, unless you're a cash buyer. My wife said that I read that the cash buyers were a much higher percentage. I said, well, that people didn't get rich. Sales are down. That's why more percentage are cash buyers. So, it's expensive to buy a home cash. So most people are, as the interest rates go, so would they. So that's my little sidebar on 2023. The other sections is a board review section that we have in the office instead of the SA section. They work in conjunction with the board review. Our season is ending right now for 2022. And of course we have mapping. That's a function of, works hand in hand with subdivisions and splits or divisions. You have double parcels, you want to combine them, you'd go to our mapping section, fill out a form, email it in, and they would make those changes. They send that information up to GIS then to go on the official aerial maps. But that's it in a nutshell. We do work close, our office does work closely also with the township assessors if they have any questions. McHenry County has a very diverse mix of townships that are large, like Lake or DuPage or Will. We also have smaller townships that are like DeKalb and Southern Illinois and Central Illinois. So a different level of staff numbers, a different level of expertise as well there. And we work closely with them. 2 of us in the office handle that, the value component. The other primary 17 people in the office are assessment administration, working with the exemptions, which are ever increasing from the state legislators. They give us exemptions to administer, but they don't give us necessarily the resources or the money to do that mandate. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Go ahead, Kelly?
Just, would you, last year, you had a presentation to the full board, and you had a slide deck that talked about how assessments are done. Would you mind sending that to everybody?
I can send it to you, but we're going to do that again, I believe. That's what we're going to, with the new board, we wanted to do that again.
Yeah, Bob's principal deputy, Alejandro Benitez, did the presentation to the board last year, and it was pretty slick. He does a really good job. Without prompting, Scott and I, we meet weekly with Chairman Bueller, and Mike said, hey, we should do that again for the new board members. So we're going to plan that maybe towards April or May.
Yeah, that's something that is, we're going to do. And by the way, he's going to put that presentation on as well as an enhanced presentation that's going to go about 2 hours for the Illinois Property Assessment Institute at their spring conference. So
we're all invited to go to that too.
So
I'll go to that one. I'll go to this one, you go to that one, yeah.
I would suggest maybe putting that slide deck on your assessments page, because I forwarded that to different constituents who complained about how their assessments were done, and they really got some clarity.
No, it is a good thing, because that's a great point. I think we did do something with.
I don't know if we videotaped it and put it on
Alicia.
YouTube.
I don't know where that went, but we would do that.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It's on,
Yeah.
Alicia sent it out on December 1.
Yeah, but we could do that again. I don't know if that's going to change it much, but, you know,
No,
I would love that. That's the timing. If we could do this in April or May, just as the tax bills are arriving, and we've got to,
He's got various, he's gone to various lengths of that. Obviously, he's got to expand it. The one he did for the board was like 15 minutes. He's got to be out there for 2 hours. So he's going to go into appeals and how that graph can look on the board review, et cetera. Now,
He has to do it for 2 hours, I see.
well, it has to last 2 hours. He can't give the slick version. So what's funny about it, though, when he brought that to me and all the thing, he goes, "Why, I'm doing this Excel presentation, but I didn't want to tell you, I didn't tell you about it." I said, "Well," he goes, "but I want to show it to you." I said, "Well, you've got to show it to me, because if you put it out there, it's coming from me." So, and so he showed it to me when he first did, now the kind of the expanded version. And I said, "Well, that's what I've been telling you for 10 to 12 years. You just put it to music. This is what I've been doing." You know? So he goes, "Now I believe you. You were right."
So is that extended version available? I mean, because
Well, it could be. It goes into further, like where an assessment official could use it, a township assessor at the board review. He's got it where you can plug in where the assessments of the township or the neighborhood are, and it shows on that graph. And it works perfect in an upmarket of what we have. It is available. Now that's going further, but the problem we run into with assessors, there's a little bit of a hesitancy for them to run with this Excel version of assessments and assessment analysis with them when they might hear that there's going to be a county takeover. So there's some pushback as to, we've got this information, we don't need it. But again, our intent was never to do that, but that's some of the problem we get with it. But that's not really being negative, that's just,
It's a fact.
it's a fact.
Right, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to get more clarification with regards to special assessments. To what degree does your organization structure yourself to provide oversight for special assessments? I mean, do you have one division that's responsible for that? One person, 2 staff members, what's that?
What do you mean by a special assessment?
Do you have to oversight, like if certain entities within the county have a special assessment, that legal entities, local government, that imposes a special assessment on a given piece of property for some type of maintenance or something like that, do you have to oversight that or not?
No, that, if it's what you're saying, if it's some type of a special assessment on a subdivision or something like that,
Exactly.
that goes directly to the clerk. We don't get involved in what that, because that's anything that would be value-based or value-driven or assessment-driven that creates that tax, we're involved initially. Those were not, so that just gets lumped in as a line item by the tax extender in the clerk's office. Now, we have assessments that are given to us from the state of Illinois, agricultural farm assessments. That's done by the state of Illinois based on agricultural productivity. We determine what is ag, whether it's ag production or not, but they give us the assessment, and that's done in conjunction with the University of Illinois Agricultural Extension. In fact, we've had people that come in and they want to appeal their agricultural assessment. You can't do it. And they said, why not? I said, well, because for you to do that, the farm committee, myself, and the chairman of the board review would have to agree to our own productivity study of McHenry County and submit that as proof that we know better than the University of Illinois Agricultural Extension. Tough battle. Tough battle. And also with solar farms, that's done by the state of Illinois. Solar energy, air pollution, but the run-of-the-mill property assessment ad valorem, that's done by our office.
Thank you.
Larry?
Yeah, we approved some software for you to track the exemptions.
Right.
Is that up and running?
That is up, and we've had some tutorial. Now that we're finished with the board review, it's going to start getting, we're going to start moving right along, getting the letters out now in January. That was a 3-year contract. I anticipate letters going out by the end of the first quarter to people saying, hey, this is what we have from this exempt. This is a company, if you know, True Roll. We
Yeah, the new people wouldn't know.
yeah, we have a contract for a exemption with an exemption firm that is hooked up with about 300 database sources where they check voting records and where bill payments are going, et cetera. We're trying to get those that have multiple exemptions, homeowner exemptions. And
They're taking a homeowner's exemption in McHenry County and living in their house in Florida and taking one there too.
well, that could be, or you could own, let's say, 6 or 7 houses, and you might be trying to attempt to get 6 or 7. Now, we're not set up like Florida is, where we have a division that is expressly for checking those exemptions, and all they do is keep getting higher because the state just keeps increasing exemptions amounts. And, you know, and the exemption for the disabled veteran, God bless them all, is really extensive. I mean, you get a free tax bill up to a house of $750,000 worth of value. And in Southern Illinois, that's worth $750 here is about $2 million down there. So, not that we're trying to rat anybody out, but there's a lot of, if you're going to go out of your way to get a $6,000 exemption, you're pretty much going to go way out of your way to get a $500,000 exemption.
And then the other thing is the CPI going up so much. What can we do as a board, as administration, and your office to let the public know it's not our fault their taxes are going up?
Well, that's true. I mean, I had a guy, I made the mistake yesterday, I was getting my brakes checked at Midas. I normally don't do this, but I did it. I don't know why. But the gentleman I was talking to said, well, what do you do for a living? I usually said I work for McHenry County, but I said this time I'm going to tell him. I said, well, I'm the county assessor at McHenry. And as I said that, a guy from Midas walked by. He said, you're who? And I I said, in McHenry County assessor. He goes, well, what are taxes gonna do this year? I said, I don't know, what do you think? And I said, have you been to Jewel lately? Have you got any gas lately? I think they're going up this year. He goes, well, they go up every year. I said, well, but this year it's justified, because the cost of doing business or the cost of running government just keeps going.
But it is, and maybe administration's got any ideas? Is there any?
No,
Public, put some notice out in the paper, anything like that?
We absolutely can work with communications to talk about that, and you said when Alex's presentation gets ready.
That
That'll be a really good one.
Alex did that in his presentation too. We thought that was a good opportunity to, basically that's why we're doing it too. This is the first time, you know, as you mentioned, Larry, going back since I've been in assessments in '03, that the inflation rate has been even close to 5%. There was only one time back in '07, it was like 4.3. This time it's over. But that's one of the reasons why, with the presentation, getting it out there or having it available for the people they can see. You know, McHenry County as a taxing body has always been one of the best, and I was just amazed in 2019 when I started realizing what the county board had done, because I could see that we were in much better shape than anybody that I was talking to out there. And the fact that our tax base isn't as diversified as commercial, industrial, in this particular instance, didn't come back to haunt us. I mean, Cook County has got turned on their head because of the pandemic, because they lost so much value, and they're not going back to those trophy office buildings. Not to the level that they were before, and we don't have that in McHenry, so it does help. But again, that's selfish. That's for us alone. We have to live with what the other tax districts have done too, particularly schools. They, you know, and we have to educate our children, but they, you know, that's a tough one there.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Shannon's not coming, I'm assuming?
The assessor was here, but she apologizes, she did have to leave for a family issue. I
Okay.
have her presentation, and Chairman, you know, next month she's going to be doing a couple of audit.
She is?
Yeah, maybe we can fold all this together.
Sure.
In the interim, you can read her. This is what she would have said.
Okay. Sounds good.
She emailed something yesterday, so.
She emailed audits. Okay, so then we're on to Advanced McHenry County.
And Stephen's going to do the main presentation here, but you know, for everyone's benefit, I wanted to kind of talk about where we've been and what's next. You know, we closed applications for the program at the end of June, and then we extended the water sewer through July. But we're full. I mean, we don't need any more applications, and you know, I think we're in a really good spot. We have about half of the $29.8 million that we committed to getting out into the community still available, but I feel like while we have about half of the money available, we're about 90% of the way done with the project, because as Stephen will show you, we've got options for how to use that remaining $14.6 million. And you know, the communities are ready, the applicants are ready. They've been anxious, knocking on our door, and we've been kind of saying that we needed to take a pause as a county board and get our own budget done in September and October, and then we need to seat a new finance committee and bring you guys up to speed as to where we are. But that's where we are today. I want Kevin to kind of reset with you, and I said Kevin, Stephen, and you know, just talk about what's next, and perhaps as soon as next month we can begin to start doing some allocations again, but we'll talk some more about that.
Thank you, Pete. So thank you, everybody. I'll try to be thorough and quick, because I know we've been in here for quite a while. Like Pete said, the purpose of today's presentation is primarily just to kind of bring everybody back onto the Advanced McHenry County wavelength, refamiliarize ourselves with, you know, the overall project and kind of where the remaining funds that Pete had mentioned, could potentially be going, and get some guidance and some conversation about how the program should really wrap up this first phase of it, of new applications that we have waiting in the queue that have been since we took that hiatus with the program, and then kind of moving into the final phase of just making sure that everybody is getting the money that they were awarded, and all the projects are following all the U.S. Treasury guidelines and everything. So with that, I'll get going. Hello?
Going.
I can just play, that's fine.
There's only 5 slides.
Yeah, it's a brief presentation. Thanks, Pete. So just to talk about briefly what's transpired with Advanced McHenry County. As you guys all know, we were allotted from the American Rescue Plan Act just under $60 million, which the committee and the board decided to use about half of that, $29 million, for county projects, and the other half for external projects, which became the Advanced McHenry County program. So on the county project side, I'll start there because it's quick to summarize and talk about. 20 projects have been approved, spanning through 13 different departments. Over the amount that's been allocated has been approved, so we're working through. Not all of that's been finalized by board action, but we have a category of projects that are kind of head nod, probably going forward, and that's where we're at. So on that county project side, there's not any room further to consider any additional projects that aren't
We've got already on the radar. 31 million, give or take, of good, solid projects that we've kind of run through for you guys, and I think it's just a matter of bringing them forward. And some of these are estimates. That's the good news. So we kind of estimated high on some of these projects, and we're hopeful that when we do bring them forward, they maybe won't be quite as expensive as we first anticipated.
Correct. And some of them are contracts as well, that all the money that's been earmarked for projects that have been approved and not yet been spent. So that's where we're at on the county side. On the external project side, so the advanced side, we've gone through, and those of you that have been a part of the committee prior to the last election cycle know we've seen quite a few different presentations from a wide variety of organizations. The committee's done a commendable job of hearing everybody out, reviewing both the county administration recommendations, as well as you guys will get more familiar with the broader group. They've been our consultant and partner throughout this process for many different aspects of the project, and they're doing the initial evaluations, making sure that the projects that are applied, they meet the U.S. Treasury guidelines, they meet the overall goals that the county board wanted to achieve with the type of projects that they're moving forward. So like I said, 20 projects have been approved, a wide variety of categories, from addressing the manufacturing in the county, school districts, college, food inequity, I'm missing anything. A lot of great stuff, a lot of meaningful projects that are going to have a long-term impact that we've all been proud to be a part of. So of those projects, $15.5 million has been committed. Just a little sub-note there. These on the accounting side, these are up and moving. A little over $1 million has actually been dispersed, gone through the process of review, and that process is up and rolling. So that's good news as well. So that leaves us with about $14.3 million for what would be our 7th round of Advanced McHenry County applications, which is kind of sparse into 2 different buckets. We have the 7th round of the traditional Advanced McHenry County projects, and then also the water and sewer that we took extra time to consider. So this is just kind of a 1,000 feet look at what really the future for those external projects looks like. So on the traditional side, the majority of what have been approved has been just nonprofits and other organizations and agencies throughout the county. There's currently 8 applications pending, over 80. It was determined by the Finance and Audit Committee throughout the process that 80 would be that threshold where this is a worthwhile project. What we've done in the past is we've invited those that scored over 80, with very seldom exceptions of needing further information along the way, and to present to the committee. If the committee felt comfortable moving forward, it would then go to the full board, for a vote on moving those forward. So the fact that we have 8 pending applications does not necessarily mean we have 8 applications moving forward. As we've seen in the past, that is not necessarily a shoo-in for broader scoring the project over 80 and the project moving forward to full funding and approval by the committee and the board. So that's just for you guys to know, this is $6 million in that bucket currently. Then moving over to the water and sewer side. So there's 6 eligible projects by Bronner standard. It's not an 80-point threshold, as we had to kind of revamp to cater a little bit more towards what those water and sewer projects actually are, what they're asking, and what we think is a good project versus maybe a project that doesn't necessarily shouldn't move forward for this type of grant program. In that bucket, there's 6 projects that really met that criteria, scored above a threshold that we determined was worthwhile of moving them forward. There's
Which is what?
So it was, I believe 70. 70, but there was a few on the hairline that were just over 69, but not 70. So we included one of those as well because it seemed a little bit arbitrary at that point. I felt
So over 69.
Over 69, correct.
Okay.
So there's $9.5 million in that bucket, and then I'll let Pete speak to it if he has anything at all about the broadband side. But there's been conversations as well about using about $3 million of the American Rescue Plan dollars to contribute to that broadband project.
Yeah, well, we're a ways away from knowing specifically if we're gonna need $3 million, but and Adam and I we're working with HR Green this afternoon. We've got 2 private vendors that are looking to make really significant investments in the county. They are gonna be looking for some match dollars. In the north, I think that match might be as low as $250,000. But on the west, the first out of the barrel request is 2.7 million. So that's, we get to 3 million there. And I don't accept 2.7 out of hand. We're going to work on that. We're going to push on that. And we're going to make sure we're getting something for that. But I don't want to, I'd like to have us be empowered to make those decisions as we move through the spring. The phase 3 of the Connect Illinois program is going to open up in February. We are well positioned. We got, I think, 22 letters of support now from schools and businesses and communities and townships. So I think we're really presenting a strong application to Connect Illinois, which is going to unlock $10 million each for these private providers to make these connections. I don't want to miss on those dollars because we can't make the match. So my suggestion, my request is to hold back roughly $3 million at this point, and maybe we don't need it. Maybe we only need a half of that. And then we'd have the enjoyable opportunity to disperse another $1.5 million in August or something like that if those dollars were still available.
Thank you. So,
yeah, Kelly?
Sorry, I was just wanting to continue on broadband. At the very beginning, weren't we setting aside like 14 million, or wasn't that discussed for broadband? Is that on the McHenry side, or is that gone and now just 3?
Now we're just down to about 3.
Okay.
Yeah, we've spent $70,000 so far in consulting services, and that's coming out of here. But we thought we were going to have to construct and own and operate a primary trunk line, and then the private entities were going to spread off of that. That's not the way it's playing out. And we aren't going to own and operate these systems. We may have some rights of first refusal on fibers in there or our own fibers in their trench, but we aren't going to own and operate this system. But that's okay. Our goal was connection. Our goal was service. Our goal was not to own a county.
Plus, they don't want to, then you get into this, we're competing against private industry, and that becomes another can of problems. Yes, sir.
On the water and sewer part of it, isn't there like a move to bring big federal money into replacing the lead pipes situation? And I don't know the timing of that or how that would fit into any of our decision making.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.
I don't think we have any requests specifically for lead pipes, but I know it's as people are, and Shaylin is developing the state legislative program for this year. There's a lot of interest in lead pipes over in Marengo, Harvard,
My whole district, every little town out there has, I mean, they got lead.
I don't recall any of the water projects being for lead pipes. They were all for
But we
expansion.
in fact, the Council of Governments dinner meeting on January 25th is going to have a presentation on lead pipes and this problem that is confronting everyone all over the country.
When is that?
January 25th in Crystal Lake.
Yeah, interestingly, most of the water and sewer projects are somewhat different. The most relatable one is a tap-on project, but that's not due to lead pipes, it's due to...
I think I got the next slide here. If we've got,
Yes.
you see here, and this is the shortfall, right? About 4 million. You know, you wish you had enough money to do everything, but I kind of look at this as positive. We're not that far off of being able to do these things. And I don't, you know, of the top line, the $6 million for I think 6 projects. There's no reason that there couldn't be some decisions made on those 6 projects that, you know, skinny those up a little bit, or perhaps one of them doesn't go at all. And we'll kind of be working with Chairman Scala and Chairman Bueller in the coming weeks to talk about what moves forward for consideration, maybe as soon as next month. The water and sewer, similarly, we've talked about it. There's no reason we couldn't just say, no one project is going to get more than X. You know, what's that, $1.5 million or something like that? That brings that number down to it. And I know our municipalities are still going to appreciate the help that they're getting, but they're just not going to get everything that they ask for. And by doing that little bit of compression, I think we can still put a circle around 3 million, pull that, and move ahead. And I think this can happen pretty quick.
Well, so can I make a couple comments?
You are the chairman.
Great. So I think one of the items that as a committee we need to discuss in the first item, which is the advance round 7 over 80, is there is entities that are getting a second bite in that amount. And so the question is as a committee, you know, the project may be very viable and something we all love and want, but do we want to award twice to an entity? So I think that's just a general discussion that we should have and that we can have. And then the water and sewer section, I agree with Pete about, you know, we have one of them that's in there, it's for 3 million something, I think. It's a lot. So, you know, do we do all of that? And that becomes a little more difficult because you're talking about municipalities, and so you're really helping a specific portion where, again, the overall thought process that when we put these guidelines together way back when was more of a McHenry County focus and not specifically a municipality. But again, I'm not saying that they're good or bad, just again, that was going based on what we had talked about before and what direction we want to go. You know, I would like to start bringing projects again, hopefully in February, to the committee again. I feel like, you know, the longer we wait, not that time is not on our side, but I mean in the sense that, you know, we want the good of this money to be put back into the county and have it start working. So the longer we put that off, we're kind of delaying the positive outcome that we hope to achieve through it. So we'll start pushing those back through again. And I think, you know, even with that, we should have a general discussion about a couple of things that I've already brought up, but just where we want to continue moving forward with this. Because ultimately, we, as you can see, we can burn through that money pretty quick. And the only caveat I'll put into that is, you know, we've already awarded in part of this 15.5 that we've already committed. We already know that there's a couple of projects that probably aren't going to end up going that we've approved, and so that money will ultimately come back into the pot. or they may not get spent the entirety of what we had approved. So, you know, there's still a amount of funds that will probably come back to this pot at some point. But we have till 26 to spend it all.
24 to allocate and 26 to spend.
Right. So we have a little bit of time, but again, I don't want to put entities under a crunch and saying, okay, well, we approved you, but now you got to have it all spent in 2 years, or, you know what I mean? So it just, don't want to have it be a negative.
I apologize for not being particularly familiar with the advanced McHenry County program, but as we look at the matrix for the 80 and over scoring, did we consider the size of the municipality or the size of the community?
So, so there was a traditional rubric that the Bronner Group developed in order to look at primarily those nonprofit entities, other agencies, not so much the water and sewer. And what we found is we were getting a lot of feedback from our local municipalities, because within the U.S. Treasury final rule, water and sewer projects were an approved category. So the way they saw it is, you know, these projects should be getting approved, why are they getting denied? And really those projects just didn't, you know, the puzzle pieces didn't really fit in with the criteria we were looking at for the other type of projects. So what we did is we went back to the drawing board with the Bronner Group. We actually created a special round to consider these projects with a specific new rubric that was designed really to look only at the water and sewer type projects. Like Chairman Scala mentioned, part of that, what was going into that was going to make them score higher is this a very localized use of the funds? You know, is this only going to impact this municipality? And at the end of the day, a lot of them really are. They're going to be the primary benefactors of getting these funds, of getting their projects.
We were kind of challenging to show, you know, how many lives are we touching with this water and sewer project? How are we impacting the environment? Are we generally cleaning things up, or are we just, you know, continuing more of the same? Are we just plugging a municipality's water sewer fund budget hole, or are we generally improving the area?
Right, I guess that's my concern in a broad sense for a lot of different types of things, is that we have certainly some high population areas within the county, but we also have those areas where they have a smaller population, but we're still relying upon units of local government to provide for the basic services on one hand, emergency services on another. And I'm not sure that we realize in a lot of respects that these small communities are frankly right on the edge of survival in many respects. So when you have questions at the state legislature level where they're looking at LGF funds and trying to reduce those funds, I mean, for certain communities, that is the primary source of their income. And so I'm wondering if there's any special consideration given to some of those smaller municipalities that struggle with these types of issues on a routine basis.
So not necessarily the smaller municipalities, but one thing that went into the grading criteria was the poverty line within the area of the municipality applying in the area that will be impacted by it, and the median household income. So that went into, you know,
Our consultants certainly worked with some of these smaller towns or their engineering firms.
Well, and that was part of the original criteria that the board had established, was focused on amount of people impacted by the use of the dollars. And so naturally, when you get some of these water and sewer projects, you know, if you were to take some of them.
You can say 30,000.
Huh?
You said Algonquin can say 30,000.
Right, but you go out to a union or something or whatever, and that scores them much lower because the impact is much lower. So that's why we as a group decided, okay, that's not fair. That's why we needed to segregate them and then create a different matrix to grade them so that the criteria is more fair, I guess.
Minimal.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Rob, any other questions over?
Do we have, yes, I do have a question, sorry.
Go ahead.
You have obviously people, projects in mind. Do we have a list of that? Can we get access to that beforehand? I mean,
Yeah.
but it's going to be fine tuned, so I'm not.
So I can email it out to the committee if
Yeah.
if
That'd be
that's.
I don't know if maybe you weren't on the board yet when we handed that out. But if not, we can easily give that to you, so.
Well, you may have, but between the,
Yeah,
all
that's
the
fine.
acclimation
It's all
over the last 10 months, but yeah, that's possible, but if you could do that
Yeah.
again. And then I think Pete just left, but I was gonna ask, kind of as a general rule, because it's really hard for me, I've got neck issues. If I don't care about getting these slide presentations ahead of time, but if I can have them on the day of, it's really easier for me to look at my computer and do a lot of, sometimes it's just that angle can really throw me off.
Sure, I'll remind Pete.
That would be great. So, thank you.
Do you have one more slide?
I do. Yeah, so this is kind of where we're at, and then what we had talked about a little bit, just the meeting with Chairman Bueller and Chairman Scala, is kind of how large some of the water and sewer projects we're asking. And so in just conversation and with some village city managers, some public works department directors in regards to, well, what do these funds mean to your projects? And some of them spell it out in the application, not all of them do. But there's a general consensus that I can feel that if any funding would be awarded, it would be appreciative. And these projects, mostly the ones that scored higher within that category, are projects that these municipalities have to get done regardless. So just bear that in mind with the next slide, because this is just a discussion example scenario only. So this is what it looks like if we take, I believe I took about 65% of the overall ask, not like per project, but the overall ask in the water and sewer bucket. So this is just showing that if you play with it a little bit, and again, this is not having anything not make it through the gauntlet of the advanced round 7, which,
That's funding all the other community requests.
correct, yeah, and it's just showing that there are paths forward to, avoiding being in the red, at the end of the day with these funds. And like Chairman Scala mentioned, there are some projects on the advanced side of those 20 that maybe will not utilize their full award, maybe will not utilize it in time, maybe might not go forward at all. So those are all just things to consider, and this is just an example that I thought might be useful to kind of think about. Any questions on this one?
Nope.
All right, great. So that was the end of my presentation. I just want to make sure we were all on the same page of what was left, what it was comprised of, and kind of what we can do to make it all work out at the end of the day.
So then what the process that we have been using is the chairman and myself meet with Pete and Stephen and Kevin typically, and we go through the projects that had over 80 points. We're not grading them. What we're doing is doing a first blush and asking a bunch of questions so that whoever the entity is, can get those questions answered, so we're not wasting committee time. Because typically, they filled out their application, but there's a bunch of holes that are left in that. So we're just kind of, taking a look at it and go, does this make sense? Does this, how is this really going to be used? And then it gives them an opportunity to get more prepared before they come here and to answer questions that obviously the committee's going to come up with themselves. So it's getting them better prepared to present. And then we move those here. We as a committee take a look at them. We ask whoever it is questions. Sometimes, they've had 0 questions, and other times we've had a whole bunch of questions, and we've actually had them come back for a couple of months because they have to get answers, and we don't like some of the stuff that's presented. And then ultimately, we pass it through, it goes to the full board for approval, and then that becomes a committed project. So that's kind of what we'll continue to do. So my hope is that in February, we bring some of the 8, I don't know if we're going to bring all 8, but at least 6?
There's 6 water and sewer.
Yeah, 8 of the other ones.
8
for 6. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt all 8 are ready for prime time.
No, but that's what I'm saying, so we'll bring some of them out, whatever that is.
Fantastic.
All right, anything else on advance? No?
So Stephen will send out the 8 projects that scored over 80, and then we can show you what the water and sewer ones that scored over 69. And knowing, if you add all those together, it's too much.
Is it 2 years ago? I know you said this by today even. It's 2 years we have to spend all this money, or
No,
it's
so
26, we have to spend it all, 24, we have to appropriate.
Oh, yeah.
End of December 31st of both of those years.
Oh.
So we got almost 2 full years to give out the money, and they got 2 years after that to spend it.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify something, housekeeping, not really important, but it is over 70. The one that was like 69, it was like 69.6, and I asked Bronner to reevaluate it. Well, I just asked him to reevaluate it and make sure that it was 69.5 truly, and they were able to find a couple points.
24, there you go, all right,
So-
okay. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Reports, Carrie. Hey Carrie, how are
Kevin
you?
is on vacation.
Kevin's in Spain
Yes.
Yeah.
at a family wedding.
He actually texted me and asked how finance and audit was going, and I said, you're on vacation.
Long and memorial.
Is he gonna email you when he works for RTI?
RTA.
Okay.
That's all right.
I still know.
Actually, RTA is exciting.
Yeah.
I don't have anything prepared.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So I will say, first, I'm sad to see Kevin leaving. I'm really happy for RTA, because they're gonna need a really good CFO, to get through the problems that they're having. Brian knows about all that. So, they got some real funding issues coming down the line, and they're gonna need a really strong person. I am tickled pink that Carrie has accepted to fill in that role and take on the new position. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited.
I'm excited, yeah, I'm excited also. Obviously, you're extremely competent and you know a lot about the county and the budgeting process and everything, and so I'm excited to see where you lead the department, so congratulations. I know are you interim right now, or are you acting, or?
No, she's just going to be full CFO on it.
Filling in for Kevin
February
when he's on
1st.
vacation.
Got it, okay.
Like in December.
All right. I did, just for the committee's information, I did ask to have, so we had talked last year a little bit about a dashboard. One of the things that I feel like the committee has been lacking ever since I've got here was a month-to-month kind of snapshot look as to where the county finances are at. Not only revenue, but expenses. And sometimes things come to the committee and we all kind of are surprised and shocked by what's going on. And part of that is because, we haven't kept at least the committee, if not the full county, up on where we are financially, meaning, our revenues from, pot sales or from, other revenue streams more than what we've anticipated, or are they less than what we've anticipated? Are expenses more than what we anticipate? So those kind of snapshot things, I feel like it'd be very beneficial to the committee to be apprised on. We did create a dashboard, Kevin did, and we kind of modified it a little bit. And I would hope that we can try and, I know you got a lot of stuff just dumped, but I'm hoping that we can get that to the point where that could be a normal monthly presentation to the committee. And it doesn't have to, I'm not looking for, 20 minutes of presentation, but just information that we can see how revenues are coming in. And part of, you can't just simply look at things because it's a snapshot. You can't simply look at, well, we budgeted 12 million and it's now May and we've only gotten 2 million. So you can't say, well, we're way behind because perhaps we're not anticipating that revenue stream to, property taxes are a great example of that. So, really it's to anticipated revenue and to anticipated expenses, how are we looking, so that we can really have a better outlook about what's going on. I mean, so when you look at last year's fiscal year, we ended up in the positive by close to $3 million.
And we were able to take that 3 million and plug it into the highway fund because that was severely lacking. But to a lot of the board members, they were like, well, how in the hell did we get to positive 3 million, you know? And so you get that at the end of the year, which is great news, and so now we can do something with it, but, you know, really, 23 members of the board were like, well, how in the hell did we suddenly get to a positive 3 million? And so we need to do a better job of communicating as we go along the fiscal year about where we're at. So that kind of stuff at the end of the year isn't a surprise. So that's one of the things that, put another thing on your plate a little bit. I think that was about it, right?
No, I appreciate those comments, and I did note, you know, in my updating my own goals, which I gave to administrative services yesterday, that we're going to, you know, start trying to prepare that monthly dashboard. We had an example of that a year ago, and I think it's just a matter of getting it going.
It's just pulling it off the shelf, dusting it off, and using it. Anything else? Okay. I don't know if we have anything for EDC.
No.
No? You got anything for Natural McHenry County?
Yes, sir, I do. The next meeting will be on February 2nd, which is a Thursday, location to be determined. And I do want to report, as you may know, on December 5th, Natural McHenry County at the Illinois Governor's Conference on Travel and Tourism won an award for Best Permanent Collateral for their Insider's Guide. So really excited about that, and kudos to the Natural McHenry County team for putting a great publication together. That's all I have.
Naturally, we won.
And Scott was down there with Elizabeth Kessler and
Jim McConaughey, Jackie.
and Jamie Pritzker was there.
He was there, and he addressed the crowd, so it was wonderful.
Oh, he didn't come over to see you.
You didn't get to shake his hand?
I was wrapped up in other things. So.
I see, okay. All right, does anyone else have anything else for today? Yes, Larry?
If Carrie's taking Kevin's spot, who's taking Carrie's spot?
Really good question.
That's honestly the thing I'm most.
That's the thing that Carrie's most worried about, is how do you feel me? And we're gonna feel our way through that in the coming months. Talking with some contractual firms about folks who've got a strong skill set in D365. That's what makes Carrie as important a piece of this whole organization as anybody, and we need to keep that up and running. You know, we're looking at a couple different options. You talked with some people yesterday, but we may go contractual for 5-6 months until we really hit our stride. But I don't want to lose any steam, and I don't want you to have too much stress. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good question, though.
Thank you for stepping in.
She's got the complete support of the finance division team, and that's what's so exciting. You know, there's no one wondering who's going to be the CFO. We know. So.
It made that search really easy, too.
It did.
Now the search replacer is a little more difficult. Okay, anything else?
Not listing the position, though.
What position?
Carrie's position.
Not immediately, but we might be doing that pretty soon.
I didn't know which one we're talking about.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's.
Okay, anything else? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 11:24. Brian moves.
Second.
Larry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 3 hours.